Day one of the much-anticipated Candidates Tournament in Yekaterinburg, Russia, a jewel on the chess calendar. 8 of the top players in the world began their campaign to decide a challenger to world champion Magnus Carlsen. Chinese star Wang Hao pulled off a big upset by defeating his Olympic teammate Ding Liren, but the game of the round was Jan Nepomniachtchi's sterling play against Dutchman Anish Giri that now places the Russian in a two-way tie for first. It's the greatest show on earth as the chess gladiators are back to do battle. Round 2 of exciting action coming up next.
From the Hyatt Regency in Yekaterinburg, this is round 2 of the 2020 candidates to determine who is going to face the world champion Magnus Carlsen later this year. It's a do-or-die tournament, and yesterday the players brought the fire.
They sure did, Alejandro. Namaste. Nice to
Yasser.
be with you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our live coverage of the Candidates 2020 tournament. It was an amazing first round. 2 decisive games, 2 draws, and in the decisive games, the players who lost previously had played in the Candidates and never lost a single game. So that was so shocking. And those players who lost it with white. Alejandro, it was an amazing first round. If we get any of that kind of action, this is going to be the tournament of tournaments. Let's take a look at our standings.
Absolutely. After just one round, we have 2 leaders. Wang
Hao
Hao and Jan Nepomniachtchi both won their games with the black pieces against Anish Giri and Ding Liren, who are sitting at the bottom. Meanwhile, the draws between Fabiano Caruana and MVL and Alexander Grischuk and Kirill Alexenko put them with half a point each.
Right.
Well, it's only been one round, but it feels like they've given us so much content. Let's take a look at the format of the event. Double round robin because, as I said, 1 round played, 13 to go. This is a 14-round event, very long by today's standards. Also a long time control if you're a fan of classical chess. This is your event. 100 minutes for the first 40 moves. 50 minutes for the next 20. That means that at move 60, you get another 15 minutes to finish your game. And all throughout, you'll have a 30-second increment. Now, a new rule for the candidates, no draw offers before Black's 40th move. None of those shenanigans. €500,000 in prize fund. But let's be real, one true prize, and that is to win the tournament and challenge Magnus Carlsen for the crown. That's what everybody is gunning for. Lots of chess to be played still. They're going to have a schedule more or less of 3 games played, 1 rest day, 3 games played, 1 rest day. Today is round 2. Tomorrow we'll have round 3, and the day after you see that green bar, that'll be our first rest day of the tournament. And of course, with us is Grandmaster Maurice Ashley to give us, well, some breaking news apparently.
Indeed, breaking news, Alejandro, Yasser, we have a big game afoot. One of the top 2 players of the tournament, favorite to win it all by some, the favorite to win it all, Ding Liren, is now dead lost against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. His position is horrible. Look at this. He's already down material. He dropped this pawn after this move C4 earlier in the position. If I can jump back to right here, C4 was played. He wasn't able to take on C4 because of bishop to A4 skewering this rook. But the problem was he couldn't even move the rook out of the way after C4 because captures, if you capture back, it doesn't matter. Knight takes on E5, an explosion in his position after captures. D6, the obvious discovery on the king, the fork coming, the bishop dropping. This is just horrible. His position would have collapsed completely. Instead, he played knight f7 and just gave this pawn away. Now down a full pawn after bishop to c4, king going to g6, and then this aggressive g4, knight h6, queen f3, bishop to d8, and now this is all all Maxime in this position. He's got a B4 break coming, up material. This is just a bad position for Black. Can he survive? He is in trouble. He lost yesterday, and to who else but his countryman. I spoke earlier in the Open about his Olympic teammate, but actually it's only his countryman Wang Hao, who has not played on the Chinese Olympic team in a while, but he is showing that he is an Olympian of Olympians, because he did take a bite out of crime yesterday and showing that, yeah, I might be ranked 7th in this tournament, but I'm here to win. He is the qualifier from the FIDE Grand Swiss of 2019, winning that event. He has jumped into the top 10 in the world right now, and he has knocked out another perennial top 10 player, Anish Giri, who he's playing at the moment. Look at that score he has, a plus score against Giri of 3-1. Don't call him an underdog. And Giri, of course, losing yesterday, cannot afford to keep up that negative trend, or else he'll be in a lot of trouble. Somebody who is not in any trouble after round one is this man, Jan Nepomniachtchi, the Russian. He played magnificently. I called it the game of the round yesterday, the win he had against Giri. And I thought about it, I think this is going to be the game of the tournament. It was absolutely incredible, amazing action, back and forth, precise play, bold play on his part. And he has jumped into the world ranks number 4 on the planet. That's only behind Ding Liren, Fabiano Caruana, and one Magnus Carlsen. That's where he is now in the rarefied heights. He's playing his countryman Grishuk. They have pretty solid results against each other. Will they continue that solid play in this game? This has just been truly an exciting tournament so far. As you said, Yasser, it feels like it's been like a week we've been playing, but one day can have so much drama, and it looks like we're going to have it again today.
Thank you, Maurice. And after those first round results, let's just take a look at how that impacted the live rating. Alejandro.
Yeah, we had this before yesterday's round, and a slight reshuffle with the decisive results. You can see that Alexander Grishuk just fell below Jan Nepomniachtchi. Just a little bit of a difference there. Jan moving up to 4th place. And that difference where Wang Hao, he suddenly surged forward, brings Anish Giri back to 13. And Wang Hao is now 9th. He actually jumped
10.
over a couple of players. In that path, he won more than 5 rating points yesterday, so that is plenty, and that puts him on top 10, I think, for the first time in his life.
Yeah, that looks like an all-time best, no question. Let's just take a look at our pairings for the second round.
And of course, we've taken a look at that game between MVL and Ding Liren, which looks like a disaster for the Chinese player. Fabiano Caruana is currently playing a very complex and exciting game against Kirill Alexeyenko from Russia. The biggest rating disparity of the entire tournament, and Fabiano with white. This is certainly a game that he needs to win.
I feel the pressure for Fabi too,
I think there's a certain pressure for him to win this one.
Exactly.
Jan Nepomniachtchi is playing Grishuk, as we mentioned, and Wang Hao facing off against Giri.
Let's jump into the game of Fabi. What we feel might be, well, a must-win game. It's a little early for that. But, hey, look, when you're talking about the rating extremes, number 1 versus number 8, number 1's got to prove why he's the top seed. And like you were saying, this
what a game. I mean, what a game. You already see it. There's a pawn on d6. There's a pawn on g4. The king on g1 is weak. What is going on, Yasser?
Exactly. Well, first of all, it came from a very sharp f3 Nimzo Indian. And it seemed to me like the players pretty much were in prep 4 or 5 moves ago. Now we've just seen this ultra sharp move g4.
And before we delve into variations, Yasser, look at the time.
Look at that. Whoa, 16 minutes to an hour.
16 minutes left for Alexeyenko to make his next 22 moves.
Right.
He does get increment.
Right.
But Fabi has an hour and 15 minutes.
That's such a huge edge to have that extra hour. Kirill is going to put himself in a lot of trouble. This was actually, I'm just going back a couple of moves because I really had a difficult time understanding the decision by Fabi to drop his bishop back. I think that's okay, but I think for a lot of us, we would say, hey, our bishop's under attack. It got that. I don't want to take that rook and lose my bishop, but I'll develop my queen. I'll defend, and if you move your rook, whether to b8 or c8, your decision, then I'll continue my development. I was a bit surprised, and I didn't understand it, frankly, the move bishop h2. And then after the move, rook c8, g4. Again, I was thinking queen c2, just bring the rook into play, get your pieces off the back row. But g4, why did he do that after bishop g6?
I feel it's a very concrete approach. It's a very Fabi type of situation. I think bishop g6 has the problem of bishop d3.
Okay, and we'll continue just the line just show.
Rook e3, you take on g6.
And I guess I'll take.
And then just queen d2.
And you're telling me my rook is like a little bit...
It also feels like you're getting crushed, right? Knight g5 is coming, knight takes f7 might just be checkmate because there's a pin with the knight on f6, so queen d5 is a very real threat. You could play rook d... you'd have rook d4 right now.
Unfortunately. I mean,
maybe
otherwise my rook is actually
maybe I have
trapped.
to trade this rook first, rook e1 or something like that.
Okay, yeah.
Also doesn't like it.
Well,
no, even you wouldn't grab that pawn.
I'm hesitating. You're right.
Anyway,
you're right. Yes.
Alexenko decided, I have to give up the piece. He didn't like some variation on bishop g6.
He sacrificed on g4.
He sacrificed on g4. With the bishop.
With the bishop.
Yeah.
Okay. So obviously
and then took with the knight.
So he's eyeballing a potential fork, but...
It is a piece.
Oh, this has got to be good for white, right?
I think the end just wanted to actually do almost miraculous type of sacrifice and take with the rook on g4.
Serious?
No, not here.
Okay.
Instead of taking with the knight.
Okay, yes. So something like bishop takes g4,
something
hg,
like that.
rook takes g4, check.
Yeah, king h1, and this awesome move, rook g6.
Whoa.
Yeah, the idea is that... Was it in this position? Why am I mixing up my move orders? Yeah, with the idea of knight g4, rook h6 coming, bishop takes d6.
That's deep.
I thought that was very deep.
Wow. Okay, but what we got instead was knight takes g4 and Fabi with an extra hour on the clock.
To figure things out.
Yeah, and that's got to be huge.
So let's try to analyze, because clearly black has some concrete ideas.
Well, the whole point is this construction, the knight on c7, the pawn on d6. He wants to eliminate that bishop on h2.
Yeah.
And on a good day, if he could ever play bishop takes d6, hey, he's right back in the game.
Right.
Okay.
That's kind of the key point, right? If I eliminate this pawn, it's almost worth more than the exchange in a way, that the bishop on h2, if it disappears and I lose my pawn on d6.
Oh.
That's just worst case scenario. Great compensation, a lot of pawns.
Right.
Whereas if you take the rook on f1, yeah, you took the rook, but your position is still kind of bad.
Right. Yeah, and again, if that pawn on d6 lives. Okay, so I'm eyeballing the knight coming to e3 as well as knight takes h2.
Absolutely.
I'm looking at moves like queen d3, perhaps queen c2. I'm also thinking that because I'm a piece up, I want to seize the initiative. So, I mean, I'm looking, I know it's probably a very bad move. Queen d5, rook takes e2, knight g5 kind of ideas. I'm trying to get the initiative. Let me just put those moves on the board. Again, I don't recommend the move, but this is the type of thing I'm thinking about, is like I'm trying to get the initiative and play with the piece that I have in hand. So I'm probably going to play queen d3. Let's just put a move on the board.
It's a very reasonable move. It attacks the rook. It asks questions that are not so easily answered. The rook doesn't have great retreating squares. It doesn't have e6. It doesn't have e8. It doesn't have e7. It doesn't have e5. If it goes to e3, it's kind of on the way, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, that's what I was trying to do, was sucker the rook onto the e3 square, where now the knight is tethered. Yeah. When you take the bishop on h2, which is, I think, what black is really wanting to do, then he's
and Fabi hasn't played bishop d3 instead.
Bishop to d3.
Yeah, also harassing this rook that's a little bit stuck.
Right, and again, eyeballing an opportunity for like a bishop, like
bishop h7 might just win in some variations.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, where bishop takes h7, and
like for example, if you play rook e3, I think bishop f4 looks extremely strong.
Yeah, that's just that's like stone cold winning.
Bishop h7, knight g5 is coming
because of what you've just said. Knight g5 with it discovered, and white's everything. So bishop d3 by Fabi. Again, You want to accelerate the action when you're material ahead. You don't want black to just consolidate. And like we've been saying, if we did something less robust, something like rook c1 and allowing knight h2, we're just not happy. This is just not happiness. So let's see the current position, bishop d3.
Yeah, he probably has to
knight
take on h2.
Takes h2. What else, right?
Right, you have to, I think. You probably also have to take on e4.
Okay, and now maybe.
Do I take with the queen or do I take with the? I think taking with the queen has some merit because I understand d6 is hanging.
Okay.
But I'm eyeballing tactics such as rook, queen h3, or even like rook d1 and then queen h3. I'm not sure they work, right? But I'm kind of thinking in those lines that one of these things might cause you a lot of problems.
Okay, so bishop d. Okay, this is the current position, right? So bishop d3.
He's already taken on h2.
He has indeed taken on h2. Okay. So, if I just chill for just one moment, just king takes h2. That's bishop d6 is with the check. Sorry. That's a. Well, then I have to play bishop
You have
d4.
to take on e4. I really don't think
there's no choice.
Yeah, you have to take on f1 as black.
Right.
And now I have a choice. I could take on f1 with the king. I could take on f1 with the queen. I don't see anything else. There's no knight g5 on the air, so.
It was funny because when Krill played the move rook c8, I was actually not 100% sure which was the best square. And I'm beginning to have some regrets as black that maybe my rook should have been on b8 here. Sometimes there's b5 and rook b6. Okay, let's imagine I take with the king. How would the variation continue now?
You probably want to play knight f6 because that hits the bishop on e4 and it hits the pawn on d6, and that's kind of
the
key.
dual purpose, right?
Right. I wonder if I just don't want to take on b7
and allow
rook
the loss
b8,
of
rook takes b2. On the other hand,
it's a double attack. You're hitting d6, which is my pride and joy, and I need to give my knight a way of retreating, right? I mean,
yeah, this starts to look like too much counterplay to me. Knight g4 on the air.
My king suddenly became adrift.
Also, my bishop on a6 is
like, no me gusta, right? I mean, something went wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, but this is all a consequence of bishop d3, right?
Yeah. So it takes. We could take with the queen. We're analyzing king takes.
Yes, sorry.
So knight f6. You also have bishop f5. That's a tempo, right?
Another reason why maybe
rook b8
was. Okay, that might be crucial.
But after rook b8, I'm having trouble defending this pawn on d6. I feel I'm just going to lose it. And I'm not saying that white's worse by any means in this position. You are up a piece, but black has 3 pawns. They're connected.
Yeah, you start to think that it might be time to start looking at bailout moves. Maurice, jump in here.
Yeah.
With some, what's going on?
I'm gonna tell you, I've been listening to you guys and working here, trying my own assessments, and there's 3 connected passers. It really comes down to something pretty simple.
And he's taking with the queen.
You see an extra piece, and we can go back to this moment where we have knight takes g4, bishop d3, knight takes. Let's be very real. It's 3 pawns. When you're up a piece, you feel like you're up. You're up. I'm up a piece.
Right.
But you got to start counting, right? When you start counting, you go, yeah, okay, whatever, but I still have the piece. You really had only a piece for 2 pawns. So you're not really up a piece. You just have an extra, a difference in material, right? That's all it is. It's just unequal distribution of material. The guy gets the pawn back. You better be showing something. You better show me the money, because otherwise these will be real pawns. Now the thing is, the pieces actually do look attractive. They look like they could be doing something really shortly, especially on the light squares. So a knight landing on g5, as you mentioned, f7 might become weak. So it's all about coordination with the pieces and also their specific purpose. Otherwise, black might start to minimize the pieces, start trading a little bit, get rid of, if he could, this bishop is so important, magnificently so. If he can get that piece off the board, these knights usually will be stepping on themselves. And don't forget about the exposed king. There's a lot of compensation here that black is counting on, that Fabi playing that move g4, he looks at Kirill and thinks, I got to get this guy. He's the bottom-rated guy. He's got to be my point.
Right.
But the guy's not weak. He's not weak by any stretch. He might be weaker than the elite players, but he is a 2,700. Okay, it's 2,699. Let's call it 2,700 player. He can play chess. And I think that Fabi is going to be looking at this position, a couple of moves, and think it's not as much as I wanted it to be.
So how does the engine try to coordinate it? Because he has taken with the queen. And
Queen
at this
takes
point,
F1 on the board.
On the board, and I do have the feeling when I see this position that if White gets a knight to d5 for free,
Okay.
the way that he would get it here, because now if I can calculate properly, knight f6 is not playable because I take and queen h3, and that looks like a very nasty double attack.
Exactly. Knight takes, hit the queen takes. Queen h3, as you were saying, hits h7, hits c8, and White for choice. No question.
That looks dead.
Okay,
so I think you have to play knight f6 first.
Not to take on d6, but first to play knight f6, hitting the bishop, and, well, also giving queen takes d6.
Also queen takes. And now I wasn't sure, because now what I wanted to ask Maurice, does knight g5 work? Because I see knight g5, bishop takes h7, queen takes f7.
I'm still not so sure, but yeah, does it work?
Does it work?
Question. We're looking at, from the starting position,
yeah, knight g5 right there.
Knight f6, knight g5.
Yep, this position, yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm thinking queen d6
Queen
is the
D6.
problem.
Yeah, and I was just wondering, does something like bishop h7 have any hopes of working? Maybe not. I was just.
Let's take a look.
We're looking. So far, the engines are disagreeing with you.
Okay.
Queen g3 is always just too much of an issue, right?
This check is too strong.
Yeah,
Your knight's hanging at the moment. So a little bit too fast.
A little bit too fast.
But however, after queen takes d6, you can just play knight back to d5. And now we're getting some coordination, as mentioned, that this knight is trying to trade itself off. We have in response to this check,
Queen g2, right?
Queen g2.
Knight
and
takes e4.
Sorry?
Yeah, go on. Knight takes
Knight
e4.
takes e4, knight takes e4.
Knight takes on. He did play bishop d6, by the way. Big news there. Knight takes on e4.
And what is this ending?
It looks bad for black.
Well, no.
These knights are.
These knights coordinated pretty rapidly.
They're gorgeous knights.
Although I know Yasser's thinking
three connected.
There's three connected passers.
Queen g2, f5.
There's going to be pressure, though, Yas. There's going to be pressure on your position here.
I think it's unclear.
Rookie.
Unclear is the position you're saying.
Unclear, yeah.
Yeah. This
me too. That's what I.
Yeah.
These
I like
three
white.
pawns.
I like white, but it's an unclear position. But he's taking with the bishop, which is big
that's
news.
it. Big news
and
there.
Immediately, Fabi plunked down that knight on d5.
What you said. I'm so happy to get the knight to d5 for free.
Yeah, because we're Fabi fans.
Fabi's happy. Fabi's happy right now, having seen this transpire.
Yeah.
And I think that what happened with Kirill is he became a little bit too much of a materialist. We're all materialists when we're down, right? We remember when Petrosian famously said that when you sacrifice, play like you sacrifice, not like you lost material.
Yeah.
Right? And it's always, when do I get it back? When do I get it back?
Right.
And in our minds, we're down, so let's get that in the pocket. I want to get my stuff. But it's all about coordination. It's all about the resultant coordination of pieces. And we know that that's the only argument White is going to be pressing. Like, I got the piece. I've got to get fully coordinated. Grabbing the pawn back too soon. Yes, you can count equality materialistically on the board, but you're not going to be ideally coordinated because you allowed White to bring that knight back to d5, and the pressure is going to be very different now. And those light squares are going to be the key, particularly that d5 square, because a bishop can appear on that square as well. So here, this is a completely different ball of wax from knight f6.
Absolutely. It just looks like so many threats against black's position. The rook on c8 looks really lame. Very difficult to bring into the position.
Look at the connected nature of White's forces. They look just beautiful.
The move suggests itself for White. Queen h3,
rook f1. Yeah. And then you start looking at knight g5 at all times, as well as bishop h7.
Bishop h7. I like this bishop h7. Queen h3 means your queen. Plus, your queen can't even move virtually. I mean, where are you going to put the black queen?
It's surprisingly
don't put it on e7 because of rook e1.
No, there's a knight on d5.
Oh, sorry.
Both.
You can't go on the e file because of rook e1.
Right.
So,
but the desirable squares b6
I'm looking for squares to go to. I can't find squares.
Exactly.
Like, where do you put your pieces? Now, it looks like the only move
g6.
No, G6 for the moment to slow things down.
Yeah, I'm thinking G6 as well because I was afraid of Queen H3 and I wanted to stop.
I'm still afraid of Queen H3.
I'm still terrified of that.
I'm seeing Queen H3 and a sack on D7. Knight F6 you got to defend against now.
Yeah, now I'm starting to think that if you go F5, I'll give my piece back somehow.
Somehow there's going to be some sacrifice that ends the game.
This looks
monstrous.
Knight G5 is coming. Queen D7 is a threat.
Excuse me, there's a King H1 on tap at some point also with a Rook G1. I mean, this
looks terrible.
Yeah, agreed.
The light
and
squares
that happened
collapsing.
very, very quickly. A very nice coordinated attack. But guys, I mean, two decisive games already.
No, but
what's going on?
This move, Bishop D6. You talk about the difference between your 2,500 Grandmaster, your 2,600 Grandmaster, your 2,700 Grandmaster, your 2,800 Grandmaster, right? There's just these different, okay, between 28 and 25 is big. But you say, well, it's 2,700. Like, why? How does a 2,700 lose to a 2,800? There are these small moments that you don't let them pass. There's just these small moments when a guy realizes, wait, hold on, I can't do this right just yet. Yes, I want my D6 pawn. I definitely want to put it in the pocket, but I can't do it right just yet. I've got to deal with this idea. What's his next move, right? What's he going to play next, and what does it look like? And when you notice Knight D5 and you look at the position, you go, wait, no, not just yet. I'm going to get the D6 pawn. Let me play Knight F6 first so that I can go after this pawn properly. And allowing Bishop B7, by the way, you add those complications in the position. So to me, the critical moment is like right here. Right when it looked like he was fighting, right when he could have just one more move, one more patient move. And that would have been the difference between 27 and what he would like to be one day at 2,800. But instead, he played this very quickly, getting the material back, like the tendency is for all of us. Yeah. Allowing this, and now just beautiful coordination of the white forces is starting to just hover, and you look at this, and now he doesn't have much time on his clock, but to look at this position with no time on your clock,
that's tough.
It's going to be very hard to defend.
And Krill's down to 8 minutes.
No,
but
I don't
we've only looked at 2 games, and the round is we're deep in the round.
Take us to the rest of the games. I want to particularly see how MVL is doing. Looks like he's crushing.
Exactly. When we came on air, we had this position after Queen G2, F4, as Maurice was showing with the breaking news report. B2, B4, move that we were expecting as well.
It looks
extra pawn. And great position for white. I mean, this king
on H6, the king on G6,
is miserable.
Bishop on A8.
Ding Liren is going to have to redeploy that knight to F6 ASAP. Now, how about our other tournament co-leader? We have Wang Hao against Anish Giri. Anish Giri, again, didn't lose a candidate's game. Famously went 14 draws, right?
Yes.
Lost and stands worse today, Alejandro.
Well, talk to us a little bit why you think that white is worse. Black is worse.
Okay, isolated queen pawn. Isolated queen pawn. I like to play against isolated queen pawn. It really depends upon the dynamics. Like if you put the knight on E4, the rook on E8, you've got the C file. Black has play. But the problem is this move.
Yeah.
Trading off the queens into an endgame is really benefiting white. And after the move F2, F3, we can just see that Wang Hao's play is very easy for the first player. He gets to play rook C1, he gets to play king F2. Of course, the bishop on G2 is it's not a favorite, but it's going to redeploy, and it's just easier for white. That's all it is.
You know what I hate about, what I really hate about these positions, what I really hate about the position with black, is having to play guys like Yasser Seirawan.
Or Anatoly Karpov. Yeah.
I mean, you're sitting there and you're thinking, this is this guy's best dream in his life to get a position where you have no counterplay anywhere at all. He may not win the game, but he knows he's got you on the hook, and he's playing with you, toying around. I'm going to make you suffer, and make you suffer, and make you suffer. There's no easy liquidation. You better play precisely, because I'm going to be squeezing you maybe for the next 3 hours, and you're going to enjoy how it feels, because it's going to be painful in the best kind of way. I mean, this is just pure suffering. This is pure suffering.
It really is.
And by the way, this is the worst part for Anish is this the composition he would love to have as white?
Exactly.
He would be like, oh man, look at this position I got. You got no chances and I can't lose.
Right.
This is just his nightmare position to be playing.
Now, the next game that is also very nightmarish, no candidates tournament would be a candidates tournament without a Berlin.
It would just wouldn't exist.
Yeah. Now, it was very strange, right? Earlier, I thought that this is all standard stuff.
It
just looks like Rook H6.
All well-known
theory. Vichy and Hikaru and just tons of players play this. Now, what happens over the next several moves, however, is very strange. Already, allowing the move Bishop B4 and, in fact, provoking this doubling of pawns, has me scratching my head. Let me just leave it there.
I do want to say that this has been played before.
Okay.
Several times.
Good. We're in theory. Now, what happens next is, again, for me, a very deep head scratcher. Okay, after this move, King F8, Rook, I'm thinking that the Rook is good on D1, but Nepo decides that B4's the square.
Yeah.
Okay, and I was always taught that in these Berlin endings, you don't want to force Black to push his queenside pawn. That's something he's going to do
voluntarily.
Anyway.
Yes.
So a lot of strange moves. Now Bishop D2, okay, that makes room for this move. I get that. That's okay.
Well, he's transferred the Rook to F3,
which maybe he could have done quicker if he had wanted to.
You would have thought so, right? The geometry allowed it.
He could have saved himself like 210B. Okay, then the next thing, right here. Okay,
Bishop C1.
This move to me shows that White's position's a little bit bankrupt of ideas. He doesn't know what to do next, so he says, my bishop could be a potential target. Now, to my mind, knight e7 is a siren call. That's basically saying, hey, I'm going to redeploy my knight to some nice squares on the queen side.
Check out the last move. Nepo has just played the move G4, sharpening up the position.
Okay, well, he can see the handwritings on the wall. He's got to do something very, very soon before Black just simply takes over all the play.
If you're a Nepo fan, there is one good thing.
Yes.
Look at that time. I mean, this is exactly what you expect from a Nepo Grisha game.
Right.
Nepo up more time than 5 years against Alexenko, if that was possible somehow.
1 hour and 2 minutes?
Yes.
Yeah, wow. Okay, yes. No, well, I could have predicted that before the game starts. I mean, I just didn't know after 3 hours. But we've got some breaking news with you, Maurice. What's going on?
Absolutely, Yasser. And indeed, we have a position where this is so bad, there's no coming back. There's absolutely no coming back. He is now on the direct path, is MVL with this move, queen to e4, check, king back. There are multiple ways he could have won. He could win this position. There are moves he could have played before, but it all comes down to breaking up the team here. This structure is horrible. Takes here. If you take back with the pawn, this pawn is going to come under fire from everything. We'll just put a move on the board. This move, knight f3, hitting the G pawn. The E pawn's hanging. It's going to be a bishop c3 sighting. Your position is just simply going to collapse after that. If you take with the bishop, the engine wants to be cute. You don't have to be. This is crushing, knight f3. But d4, opening up this diagonal for the bishop. What a move. Takes, knight back. You're getting ready to put the bishop on this line. Your bishop drops back. And in this position, knight g5, there is just a direct assault on your position. There's a knight e6 check coming. I mean, this is not even losing the game. This is getting completely smashed. Ding Liren will go to -2. The second highest rated player in the tournament, 2,800, no more. He's under 2,800 now. He came in with aspirations. He was the betting favorite. I saw tons of math saying this guy was a little edge against Fabi. I found that surprising, but nevertheless, I would have said one of the top 2 players for sure. Looking now like he's going to tumble to last place after this round.
That's just unbelievable. Ding Liren's 2019 was phenomenal. I mean, he just played the best chess of his career, became top 3 in the world. I mean, hello.
To crown it, winning against MVL.
Yeah.
In such great fashion.
Yeah,
this is going to be a sweet revenge for Maxime.
I know, I'm telling you. And for Ding Liren, it just doesn't get any worse. The worst start imaginable, losing with the white pieces in round 1. And now, I mean, we talk about the total crush. Yeah. MVL is just... Oof.
You got me on the Grand Chess Tour, but I'm ruining your World Championship chances.
And that's a big one, right?
Which
That
one do
is
you
big.
want?
Yeah.
No, indeed.
Wow.
We can't put too fine a point on it. In these tournaments, you want to start off strong.
Exactly.
The player who is in form wins the tournament. The one who's the hottest. It's generally not just, oh, he got a lucky break here, lucky break. No, it's the one who's playing well, and we're looking for it right away. Grishik said it after round one. He said, we all play badly.
Horribly.
Except maybe Nepo.
Yeah.
That guy,
was good.
right?
Yeah.
He played well. So we have a situation where we're looking at the form of the players. Now, I think he overstated it, although MVL might say, I didn't play well the first game. I don't think Fabi played badly in round one, although I think he could have tried for more.
It was an interesting game.
I think he liquidated a little bit. He didn't really go for it, I believe, as he should have, allowing that position to equalize itself a bit too quickly. But nevertheless, you can't say he played badly. It was an interesting game. So you're looking at MVL, you're looking at Fabi, you're looking at Nepo. If you're looking for players on form, and you're looking at Wang Hao. Those are the players we're now naming as the ones who may start distancing themselves if the others don't get their act together. Ding Liren, 0-2, trying to don't let it be 0-2 and Wang Hao be 2-0. Trying to make up that kind of ground, boy, is rough. And by the way, when you start losing games, it's so mean the sharks come out.
Yeah.
They smell blood. They say, well, you looking for who's on form? They're looking for who's off form.
Right.
Go get that guy.
Right.
And so bad news for him right now. And we can look at some of these stats from Fast Facts. We say you can lose in this tournament, but you got to wait a while. We have 4 events, the recent events from 2013 to look at. And the winners, look how they did. Almost all of them lost during the tournament, but they waited until later. Caruana in Berlin, the last one, he didn't lose until round 12. We're talking about a 14-round event. Karyakin in Moscow didn't lose until 11. Anand was +3 with no blemishes in his 2014 win. And Magnus lost 2, but his first one didn't come until round 11. He was doing extremely well. He even lost in the last round and was able to win on tie breaks. So, if you're going to win this, and the only thing you can do is win it to matter at all, you've got to lose late. You got to start off strong. That's the bottom line. You got to start off strong and maintain it for a while. We saw there that Wang Hao is the 7th seed. He won his game. That's the same thing that Karyakin did as 7th seed. He also ended up winning the tournament. So don't think just because you're 7th seed, you can't win. It's been proven done before.
This 7th seed isn't bad.
This just reminds me, Ding Liren is reminding me of Wesley, of the last candidates, where Wesley
started with
0 out of
-2.
-2, and then he just disappeared.
Right, he just drew his way out of the tournament.
Basically, I mean,
Yeah, he never recovered. Never recovered from the horrible.
Never recovered.
Start.
And this is what he needs, such psychological presence to be able to come back from 2 straight defeats. Just horrible defeats, by the way.
Yes.
I mean, the way that he had such a nice position yesterday, he was pressing against Wang Hao. It just seemed like such a Ding Liren position.
Right.
He plays F4, criticized around the world for this move, loses the game, and then today, he just gets wiped off the board in his favorite variation of the Spanish. I mean,
amazing. Just want to play a quick game of catch-up in the game of Fabi. Just as we saw, bishop takes d6, knight d5, we expected this move g7, g6, because the idea is this light squared bishop is actually, it doesn't have a counterpart. So if you're in black shoes, you want to try to neutralize that bishop, and the move g7, g6 makes perfect sense. Queen h3, don't reach for the f-pawn. We already saw that f5 would be walk right into a sacrifice. So king g7, covering some squares, stopping a potential queen h6 and knight g5. Yeah, makes perfect sense. And king h1 by Fabi. I would have been reaching for the rook myself.
I like king h1. It prefers bishop f5, right?
It prepares bishop f5.
Yeah.
Oh.
Because if you take rook
then
g1,
rook g1, and then you're okay.
Yeah.
And yes, please jump in.
Jump in, Maurice.
But
what?
the engine points out this really spectacular idea. Bishop f5 anyway.
Immediately.
Just do it.
Really?
Just do it. And just bishop f5. And after it takes king f2.
Okay.
King f2.
Why f2? No, we'll never
Yeah,
know.
yeah, right.
I'm not even going to try to explain it. But the point is to get the king out of the way. I guess it wants to centralize this king for the winning endgame that it's going to be playing for. Or maybe it's preserving the h1 square for a rook as well in some variations.
That could be very nice.
Make a point.
Yeah,
but
this one's tough because knight f8, right?
Right?
Knight f8. Now that's the key. Knight f8 looks so strong, but rook g1 check.
Rook G. At this point, I might have just start giving up. Right?
The
Because I would
variation
see,
is
yeah,
giving
yeah,
up.
Yeah, because you
Yeah.
see a knight going to g6. But now rook g1, knight g6, knight g5.
H6.
And how do you stop the attack on the light squares?
H6. Knight takes f7.
Looks
you
like
get crushed.
looks like a mean knight f7 coming straight at you in that line.
that's
Looks like
queen
that's
takes-
unfriendly.
queen takes
Queen f5
That
check
is
coming.
not-
Absolutely crushed. No, that's beautiful.
that
It's
is
just
a-
Now, so
difficult.
no, hold on. Let's just continue this line, please.
Yeah.
Because you can defend it with the queen after knight g5.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Knight g5,
Queen.
and but you know where you're putting it. You're like, where do I put my queen, right?
Yeah.
You got to figure out a square. The problem is, after any queen defense, queen takes on f5, and suddenly there's just monster move. Queen f6, check is a threat in the position.
So I'm 2 pawns down, but I've got all the play.
You've got all the play, and don't forget the rook h1 idea that might show up at any point. And yes, knight e7 is a threat. I mean, amazing attack.
I agree with you, Yasser.
Amazing attack.
Yeah.
I
I
would've
might have
never-
stopped my
I would've
analysis.
stopped. I
After
think
knight
I'm
f8,
up-
we would've
I'm
all
up a
stopped.
piece. Why go into this, right?
Right, but now having said that, bishop a5
Oh,
is a
it's
really
very, very
that's a
visual.
beautiful,
That's a beautiful move.
beautiful move. But king g1,
King h1.
Pardon me, king h1 sets that all up too.
A
I mean,
95 play, remember that Kirill is in very deep time pressure, so you play 95, trying to trade off some
Quickly.
pieces of knight h4. I am assuming trying to play, well, knight f5.
Yeah, now he's just continuing the direct path. He's still definitely under control here. But the pieces are hovering, and sacrifices abound. Rook f1 coming, ideas, knight f5 ideas. just-
Maurice, you were talking about that material imbalance, the 3 pawns.
Yes.
Like, okay, what black really desperately wants is an endgame.
Oh, yeah.
Please take off
Could
the
we
queens.
trade, please?
But with the piece, what you've got to do when you've got the piece is coordinate the attack. And this is
Coordinate
what
the
we're
attack.
seeing
Yep.
with this move knight h4. He's keeping as many pieces on the board as Fabi, and he's saying, I'm going to attack you, and by the way, you've got no time. What is
Oh,
this?
it's horrible. 3 minutes.
40 seconds for Kirill Alexenko.
3
Facing
minutes.
the
Ooh.
barrel of a gun. I mean, knight f5, rook g1 just looks like it's game ending.
Right.
You need to find a defense right
Point
now.
out, and your queen can't help because your rook on c8. Remember you talked about that
Yeah.
rook on
Rook
c8.
maybe on b8.
And again, maybe it should have been off that square. The
Right.
rook on c8 is hanging. How do you coordinate everybody? If somehow you could pick your rook up and put it on h5 maybe.
Brilliant.
Could we just help?
Yeah.
Bring another. We don't have that many pieces. Could we bring the pieces to help? But you can't even imagine. That's impossible in this position.
Right.
You can't imagine how to do that. Your queen can't come over. That means we're talking about the knight, the bishop, and the pawns trying to hold back the tsunami that's about to hit. White has, count them, 5 pieces that are going to be hovering around that king. You're just going to have more numbers than the guy can bring to defend. And don't try pushing pawns because sacrifices are going to abound. So how do you, this is hopeless.
Well, Kirill came up with a weird move, h5. Let's
I was
take a
about
look
to
at that.
suggest h5. Strangely enough, the idea was
That looks-
I'm seeing rook g1.
Yes.
And I'm going, rook g1, I'm dead. But I'm thinking I can try to plug up the g file with the move knight g4. So that's why I needed it at h5.
Okay.
h5.
h5 on the board. Let's see what Fabi starts to think.
This
You know,
looks
Maurice,
so delicious.
you may
I'm just want to sack something on any square. Like, where do I sack?
And
Where do I
probably
sack?
everything wins. I mean, at this point, it's just such a bad position. Taking on g4, I would be shocked to not win. But you could probably take it slow, right? There's no need to do this.
Also some ideas of queen c3. I'm sorry. Yes.
No, what I was saying is,
Yes, please.
I didn't agree so much with Maurice about the 2700 part about knight f6.
Right.
When Kirill had that choice of taking
Bishop
on d6
d6,
directly.
yeah.
I thought knight f6 just screamed to be played.
Right.
Because it's an attack, and you can take on d6 with the queen. You want to take with the queen, not with the bishop.
Right.
But when he plays the move rook c8,
Yeah.
that's where I feel the difference between a 2700 and 2800 is.
Nice.
Because the 2800s, they say, down the line, this rook is not good on c8. It's on b8 that I needed. There are this and this and this further down the line.
Right.
This subtlety, and you can see it here. How many times has the rook been hanging? How many times has the rook needed to be in a position where it wasn't being attacked. And Fabius used it tactically, so many opportunities. His queen on h3, attacking the rook on c8.
Right.
Was the rook on b8?
Even bishop f5.
Even bishop f5. I'm not saying that
pin.
Kirill was out of danger,
Right.
but it just made his position that little bit better.
Yeah, that subtlety between the rook being on b8 and rook being on c8, that's the 2800.
That's where I put the
But knight f6 was a tempo. I mean, it was a tempo. You would have expected him to find it.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, you're absolutely right about the rook c8 idea.
Yeah.
No disagreement. That is
nice.
absolutely nuanced. Again, though, when in trouble, the move that you expect him to find, it's just I just consistently see the art of defense. Right? That's the difference. Yeah, so we've seen that without any question. You go pre-2000.
Right.
Defense was starting to get good.
Right.
But it wasn't quite there yet. But this generation, the generation of the engines, the ones who they say, oh, we're going to attack, we're going to sack, and the engine goes, that's just dumb. That's stupid. What are you doing? Oh,
I laugh at you.
Sack a pawn. I'm going to play like Tal. And they go, yeah, Tal used to be a star player. He was creative and all, but there was mistakes here, mistakes there. When they're not intimidated anymore, and so when in trouble, the move you need to play right now, 2800s find it. What I need to do right now, you find it. So that kind of moment with knight f6, he needed to play it right then. He would see that. Give him 50 minutes on the clock, a different circumstance. He looks at it, but this particular situation when he needed to find knight f6 with little time on the clock, the bosses find those kind of moves, and that's why it's so hard for the 2800s to defeat each other, because it just keeps being situational that they're able to play well. This situation is horrible. Why? Rook g1, this h5 idea is not going to help, because guess what? It's all about the math, folks. Knight f5 is going to crush you. And we have rook g1 on the board. The reason why, we can afford to start sacrificing stuff. No problem. We have enough wood on this side to get the job done. You don't need more than you need, just enough. And yeah, if that rook wasn't on c8, you might think you can bring your queen over, maybe. Well, obviously you can't because of bishop g4, but you'd be thinking thoughts like that. But with the rook sitting here, I think it actually doesn't even matter in this case.
No.
It's just too much wood on this side, and your king is being blasted. So knight g4, the h5 idea with the idea of playing knight g4 simply doesn't work. Right. He's now realizing it. He's stopping to think about the position. He cannot play knight g4.
He doesn't have too much time to
think
about it.
He has no time to cogitate, meditate. All he can do right now is genuflect. Please, where's the miracle? Please, something happen to save me. It ain't coming, because here comes furious Fabiano Caruana.
Rook g1, beautiful move, threatening knight f5, and just that nice move. You sit there and go, oh, there's no knight f2 check. You're in a pin. Bishop takes f5, and Alejandro, that's just
lights out.
That's it.
You just can't play it.
No.
You got only a knight defending this position, and that knight is pinned, and the h-pawn is going to drop, and nobody can help, and that's it.
And we're talking about 2 minutes left for Kirill Aleksenko.
You could give him an hour now.
Now you can give him an hour.
But it's not going to matter. It just means that this game will be over soon.
That's what it means, yeah.
Coming into this game, I thought that there was a lot of pressure on Fabi to perform because of the extreme rating differences between the number 1 and number 8. You're coming as number 1. You got to prove it. You got to beat the number 8 guy.
I think it's such a difference between this candidates and the others, because even the last seed on any other candidates, you couldn't mention who that was.
Yeah.
Like if I ask you who was the last seed in the previous candidates, you wouldn't immediately have that available, right? It was somebody, but it was such a short difference between...
Packed.
Yeah, it was so packed. You didn't have that feeling that the first seed had to be the last seed.
Right.
But in this one, it starts to feel that way. Kirill in trouble yesterday.
Yes.
Kirill getting blasted today.
Right.
I mean, he's a strong player. I get that. He's very strong. He's just not this caliber, and people are starting to see this guy. Has he stepped it up from 2,700 to 2,760 in his preparation of the last couple of months?
Right.
And we're going to see, right?
This is the test.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And let's just go back to the all-Russian matchup for just a second, because when we left it, we had just seen this very important move, G4.
Yes.
And I was very curious to see how Alexander Grishuk was going to handle G4, because, again, I was really getting the feeling that Grishuk was getting ready to take over the light squares and just, don't push any action. Please, Jan, remain passive.
Before you continue,
Please.
let's just be sure on this because
Okay.
I see Kiro's clock as we got to know when the
Zero?
people die.
Yeah.
He's now at, and it looks like it has happened in the game. Do I have moves? No, I don't have moves yet. 94.
16
I have
seconds.
14 seconds on mine. I mean,
Right.
maybe this is not totally up to date, but I
Right.
have seconds ticking down, and we need a move. We see no relay move. Rook G1 is the last move. So this is what we have. I now have all zeros on my clock.
He's played Bishop F8 with 2 seconds left.
2 seconds left. He played Bishop F8.
It's not exactly a good move.
No,
But-
it didn't
but
do
it's a
anything.
move.
But it did finally have to move. So let's just make sure we pay attention because there's a decisive game. The decision is about to occur.
Right. There's no question the decision there. But I got to tell you, it looks so overwhelming. I don't see any problems here. I think that.
Well, what's the
he's just
move? Well, what's the move though? Let's
Knight
get the
F5
knockout.
check.
Knight
Let's
F5.
get the knockout.
Knight
plan.
F5 and
check.
Knight F4, Knight takes H5 looks like lights out. To me, right?
Well, first of all, where do we even move the king? King G8. I could maybe
No, you
just
have to
take
play
this.
King H7, right?
Right, King H7. Otherwise, I was just thinking I was just going to take
Right, on
the
H5.
pawn on
and here
H5.
is where I was thinking you go Knight F4 and you take on H5, and that looks like you resign, right? Knight H5 is just checkmate.
You're making a very, very good argument here. I got nothing to say.
Maurice, did I get it right?
Yeah,
The engine gives that looks crushing, but the engine gives another body blow, which I think he's going to be looking at. I'm sure he's looking at Knight F5, but it gives Knight takes on G6 immediately instead of
What?
Knight F5. check.
Instead of Knight F5.
Knight. Oh, sorry. I just went
G6.
Knight takes G6.
Yep.
And then you just take.
And if you take with the pawn,
Yeah.
then
F4.
the Knight F4 move with the Knight E6,
E6.
forky worky coming, Knight H5 coming, Knight G6, everything, every.
Don't think about Queen D4 either. Don't think
96
Knight
is
E6
still
check.
going to pick up that queen.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's a royal fork, and again, look at this beautiful coordinated attack on against the G6 pawn.
Well, just nobody to help.
Yeah.
You've got nobody to help. You can't even play Rook C6 as a bailout because it'll just be snapped off the board, and then Knight E6 check is back. So there's nobody to help. This is a light square attack when you have a dark square bishop. Material looks even. Looks like you're up. The piece distribution looks even, but in fact, the attack is taking place in an opposite color of your bishop. So you're in effect down a piece. What Black would give to trade his bishop in now for a light square bishop? You can switch colors somehow, so that can help out. But the dark square bishop is of no consequence in this position, and the attack just plays itself.
That's a beauty one. No
Let's
arguments
see.
either.
Let's see. He must be looking at both moves. There's no question about it. Knight F5 is solid, is crushing. We know that's going to work. But boy, would you rather play Knight F5 or Knight G6? Yum, yum, yum.
Yeah, this looks stylistic, but I got to tell you, I mean, when I saw the move Knight H4 and I saw the move Rook G1, I mean, Knight H4, he was playing for Knight
Knight
F5.
F5, right?
Let's
It's
play
kind of like
it.
the consequential.
Exactly.
Move, right?
You said A, you said B, now you got to say C with Knight F5. But having said that, Knight G6 looks awesome. Two crushing.
What do you think he's going to play?
Knight F5.
That's my feeling too. I really feel like
I
it's so
wanted to say
easy.
Knight
It's
F5.
like, why do any risky business?
Like,
However,
Knight F5
again, when you start seriously looking at Knight takes G6, and you just only got to look like,
Yeah, you don't have to look
Reply.
that. Yeah, you don't have to look that far.
you go,
it's 2 moves down.
wow.
Just 2 moves.
Yeah, just 2 moves.
That's
very
yummy,
easy for
yummy.
Fabi.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
this is-
very yummy.
this is
Knight
Very
G6.
easy. I can't. We're gonna wait to see what he does. It's exciting. I think probably now we can move away for a moment from this game.
Yeah.
But this may be the only victory of the round.
No.
No,
King
MVL, of
MVL.
course, MVL. But this will be one of the most important victories for sure because
By the way, as we came in onto the show, somebody was predicting 2 wins and 2 draws again.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't
was
hear
like,
that.
I didn't hear that either.
Yeah,
I don't remember hearing
it's-
that at all.
Yeah, no,
You heard that?
Yasser Seirawan
It wasn't
heard
me.
Yasser Seirawan.
I would like to take credit, but it wasn't me. We're being treated to some
Excellent
really
battles.
Fantastic.
I wanted to take a look
Please.
because you guys are mentioning 2 wins by Fabi and MVL, of
Choice.
course, absolutely crushing. But I look at the other games. I don't think they're as clearly drawn as.
No, I
No,
thought
no,
that
not
Wang.
at all.
Sorry, I just wanted to go to our other tournament co-leader, Jan
Yeah,
Nepov.
this is the one I wanted to see because
Yeah,
things
this was-
happened very quickly.
Right. Okay. This is
This is where we left off.
right. Knight to c6. Okay. All right.
Typical Berlin kind of remaneuvers, saving the pieces, avoiding e6 breaks.
And by the way, bishops of opposite color middle game and pawn on h3 is a potential target. Black wants to play knight e6, of
I'm
course.
not really sure why e6 is not a move here.
e7, e6?
Well, I kind of want to take on.
e5, e6. Oh,
Yeah.
you want to take on c7?
I want to take on c7. Here I thought I could throw in g4 because you can't move the knight, right?
Right.
And then I take on c7, and I think your structure is. Am I missing something? Well, if you have to play
then
rook
I got
h8,
bishop takes c7.
then you have bishop takes c7, and your knight still can't move,
I'm
right?
stuck. You're
kind
right.
of stuck, and your structure on the queen side.
Okay, he didn't play it. He played king g2. And by the way, e5, e6 is a move that Jan and everybody from Kasparov on down have been wanting to play.
That's how I learned it, because the Kasparov beat Kramnik in Astana after the World Championship.
Right.
Like, you just look at e6 at every Berlin position.
By the way, I mean, there are certain moments in the chess world that, are fried into our brain. That was one of them, too.
Absolutely,
e5, e6,
yeah.
right? Okay, so that is a move that White is aspiring to. He played king g2.
Okay, king,
and, well...
Well, it just looks like a very solid, nothing much happening.
Okay, here I could
Here,
say
very
drawish,
very opposite color bishops.
again, Wang Hao versus Anish. That is the MVL
That's
game.
MVL, and that looks.
That's the game I was saying you better jump to now. This
Before
one
it's too late?
Well, it's not as clear though. He didn't really
Not as clear.
drop the hammer the way he could have, although he definitely is owning this game. Don't get me wrong. He's definitely owning the game. Yeah. But he has turned it into an end game, more technical affair, king f6, and then the move knight d2, and rook d8, I believe, was played. Is that on the board?
Yeah, rook d8.
As well. So the d-pawn's dropping. The engine, by the way, giving b7 to win in this position because of the move rook b1 coming with all kinds of energy. As you're taking on d5, you're going to drop your bishop on b8 in the long run, and you got a knight e4 sighting. So definitely crushing. Definitely crushing. It's not that mating attack and simple, but you look at it now, it does clear up the cobwebs.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. This looks dead.
Right. I mean, wow. Nice, huge advantages for MVL. Sorry,
So this is the game that we...
And this is finally the other tournament co-leader game that we've hardly paid attention to, and it's Anish Giri basically thrown backwards. He is definitely trying to hold the position, and how is he doing?
Oh, I like this knight g8 move, actually.
Why?
Because this pawn on f3 is just controlling my knight in such a bad way, right? It's so permanent. The knight on f6 obviously can never go to d5 because of my isolated pawn. h5, even if the pawn wasn't on h5. It's such a bad square.
So the knight's terrible.
So the knight's terrible, and I need to move it somewhere. And sometimes you're kind of hesitant to move a knight from f6. You're like, the knight's on f6. It's all right. But I like knight g8. It reroutes. Now suddenly the knight gets some strength. It can go to e7, where it also defends d5 if I need to. But I can also go to f5. I can go to c6. It just
makes sense. Makes sense.
When you look at it, it's such a good move. But it's so hard to play, right? You put the knight back on g8.
Yeah, you're thinking to yourself, I want to go forward. I don't want to go backwards. Bishop c3, bishop h6, rook d3. Let's speed up. And breaking news. Maurice.
Indeed, big results. We are now predicting that this game will end in a draw between Grishchuk and his teammate, Russian friend as well. I don't know how good buddies they are. I remember he came in here and said Karyakin wasn't his friend like that. His drug. His drug. My drug. It wasn't his friend like that. So maybe they're not drugs. They're not homies. But this one here, rook d8, we're expecting to see mass liquidation of rooks and then get to this bishop of opposite color ending. And we can safely predict that this one will end in a draw.
Yeah. By the way, I remember that interview too, and the drug, man. That was I like that. I mean, we don't have Christmas together. He's not my drug. Okay. Advantage Wang Hao. It's a lot of play. Obviously, it's not dead. But again,
No, by no means, right?
Yeah, no means. But as Maurice was saying, Anatoly Karpov is going to just torture you for a long time. Remember Anatoly winning a very nice game against Boris Spassky, this kind of isolated queen pawn ending, and also Garry Kasparov in a World Championship match. It feels good.
All right,
Two-result game.
Specifically from this position,
Yes.
how do you continue? I guess it is, in this point, it's black's move. Let's just make a move in the position, just a pass.
Okay.
Any pass. King somewhere.
King
G8,
G8.
okay, because I
Perfect.
can't play it on the
Right.
diagonal. I'm just wondering, you've put your bishop on F1.
Yep.
What's your strengthening plan here? You probably want to play E3, and I'll make a pass just to make a point.
Right.
And then, what are going to be your next moves? I want to put on H7 to make the pass.
Okay.
I think on F8 it might run into tap.
You might walk into Bishop B4
Something,
and
yeah.
give me something over there. For me, I remember this very well from Bent Larson. He said to me, Yasser, when you're playing against an isolated queen pawn, you want to win it.
Okay, fair enough.
Just you want to win it. So, eventually, what you want to do is retreat your knight from a D4, and you just want to, seriously, you just want to simply assault this pawn. Maybe with some preparation. Pardon me.
We do have a draw officially between the Russians. Jan Nepomniachtchi has drawn against Alexander Grisham. We already expected that,
right?
So we can
Yeah,
move on to winning the pawn.
Winning the pawn. So, I mean, I think maybe knights D4 to C2 is maybe a little bit too early. I'm thinking that as white, I would start to, I want to put the king back on H7. I would like to improve my pieces a little bit. The bishop on F1, maybe my rook on D3 is not exactly, well, okay, let's just say knight C2. The idea very directly is I'm eyeballing bishop F6, I'm not immediately knight B4, bishop F6. I want to take this pawn.
But not knight C2 right now, right? Because knight C2 loses.
I walk into,
bishop F5,
bishop F5.
takes on C2 and knight F5.
And then you're killing E3.
I'm killing E3.
You are killing E3. I beg your pardon.
So,
okay, I have to do it. Okay, so what am I doing?
Maybe.
I'm kind of like, I'm not that coordinated with my
pieces. Because when you move the rook from the third rank, the E3 pawn really suffers.
Indeed, it does. Seriously? This is like really weird.
Maybe it's
I'm
hard
sorry,
to
I'm going to have to think about this. I mean, it's like okay, let me play bishop E2. Okay, I might be thinking about G4. I'm not 100% sure what I'm thinking about at the moment, but now you can see, and you're absolutely right, Alejandro, that the knight on F6 to G8 to E7 was a very good idea.
I love that idea, right?
Redeploy.
Yes.
Otherwise, you were just getting so passively. Now the knight on E7 is actually working.
Yes.
Bishop E2, I do see it as a torture for black, but you're absolutely right. It's not that easy to just get the coordination I want. I want my knight on F4.
Yeah, the knight on F4. I want to be hitting this pawn on D5, tying you down.
You know what? I think it's the illusion of the double rooks on the D line.
Yeah.
The illusion.
The illusion of the double rooks.
It's like they're not really working.
Because the knight on E7 guards everything.
Right.
Like, unless you put a minor on that pawn, you have nothing.
I love that point. The rooks are kind of clumsy because one single knight is holding them back.
Yeah.
Perhaps they need
They're
better.
being blocked. Yeah.
Yeah, they need a better square.
Okay, I've got an idea. Bishop E2. Here's the idea. Okay, you're going to love this.
Okay, I'm assuming that knight F5 wasn't winning, but okay.
Okay, you're going to love this.
Oh, where is this bishop going?
Just here. I want to tie you down.
I like it. If you can get the bishop to B3.
Knight E2.
White has certainly improved.
Go for it, Maurice. Breaking news. What do you got for us?
Indeed, and now we
He's excited.
have a sacrifice alert, and it has occurred. He did play the move. What do you guessed? We guessed knight F4. He played it. Knight G4 instantly played, and knight takes on h5, smashing through in the position, cracking the position open. Pawn takes has been played, and we're expecting at any moment the move knight to f5 check. We do have the piece sack as anticipated. This position is collapsing rapidly. The h-pawn is going to drop. The knight on g4 is dead to our rights to the world. It looks like Fabi's still waiting. He's still staying calm in this moment, but we expect the decisive blow to be landed at any moment. Fabiano Caruana surging right now, the contender from the last championship cycle, looking to now show that he indeed wants to challenge Magnus yet again by winning very quickly. You want to win early in this and get that momentum, because this win could just pick up his confidence. And he is the #1 seed by a long way. Now, by the way, separating himself even more so from Ding Liren, who is just dropping like a rock. Fabi will be outrating everyone in the field by like 50 rating points
50, yes.
when this round is over. So.
But even if Fabi would be, we'll only get him in a tie for first with Jan.
Indeed.
And
But I will tell you.
At most.
Because Wang Hao, well, if he wins.
Wang Hao is working. That said, nobody in this field wants to see Fabi get hot.
No.
You don't want anybody to get hot, but not that dude. We know what he could do.
Right.
He could simply beat everybody when he's on fire.
And he just comes from such a spectacular tournament. A truly spectacular event in Vaikanze. You can see there Fabiano Caruana here in the St. Louis Chess Club. I mean, when the guy streaks,
I know.
it's just amazing.
It's crazy.
Isn't
And
it?
let's make a point as well. Chess is a zero-sum game. It's just the way it is. If I win, you lose. If you're in trouble, I love it when even if I'm not playing you. For Fabi to see Ding Liren going down, then his spirits lift. Oh yeah, keep killing that guy.
Right.
I hope he keeps playing badly. I don't need him to think that he can come back. I want to separate myself and show that I'm the boss of this tournament, and everybody knows that I'm indeed the #2 player deserving of playing Magnus Carlsen.
Absolutely.
So just to finish the variation there that you have, Maurice. So king knight f5, I assume, is winning. What is the correct continuation after just moving the king up?
Yeah, I was about to say.
Up, I assume you mean
F6.
You
King to
can't
F6.
go.
Yeah,
King
you can't go to
H8 is suicidal. G8 is suicidal. G6 is so F6 is the only move.
It's not like I wanted to.
But okay,
But you
you're
forced my
walking the
hand.
plank.
Yes.
And by the way, now that you're not in a pin, knight F2. I was thinking that his intention was just to chill.
So it's just easy peasy.
Your
That's
turn.
it. And that, in fact, is the killer blow.
And your king,
You can't survive this.
No, you can't survive.
Your pieces are ridiculous.
I just didn't see like a check win.
Right.
So I was wondering if I was missing something. But Rook F1 is convincing enough.
Yeah.
I mean, that H-pawn is flimsy. The knight is doing nothing.
No.
Yeah.
The rook on C8, the bishop on F8, the queen.
do
You would
you-
expect to surge into the game somehow
No.
to defend the poor king. No.
this is
Do
dead.
you ever have this kind of a situation with a student where you go Rook F1 and the student goes, yeah, you're right. And you go, no, don't give up. Keep trying. Come on. No. I don't want to accept your resignation.
I want more.
It's like, okay.
Yeah, when I tell you to resign.
Yeah, exactly. Okay,
That's like
looking good.
That's like you remind me of Almira. Remember the argument
Yeah.
I had with Almira?
Yes.
Almira Shevchenko, who does Russian commentary and French commentary and could easily do English commentary as well. But I remember the argument I got in with her, and at the end when I said, okay.
You're right.
You're right. She said, oh, no, stop now.
You don't even know why you're giving it up.
That's right. Keep arguing. I know you're begging for mercy. Keep arguing.
That was brilliant.
That's the kind of situation we have. Please don't resign.
I was laughing so hard I hurt myself in the car.
He said, I remember I was playing Wynton Marsalis, actually, the great jazz musician. He didn't know I was a grandmaster. We were playing a prank on him. And he was playing a game, and his friend, as he's playing, he thinks he's playing just some Joe Schmo off the street. And so I'm beating him, and he goes, his friends go resign, and he goes, I never resign. And I play, please don't resign. Please. This looks so good. That's the kind of position this is.
Ouch.
You don't want the guy to give up. Just keep playing. We're going to call our friends over.
Maybe I'll blow it. Oh my goodness. Okay, Wang Hao. Okay, he played, by the way, Rook D3 to D2, trying to avoid any of those Knight F5 tricks that
I like
might
that.
have appeared.
Can we take a look at the MVL game, because I do
Please.
see a couple of moves, and Fabi has not
Oops,
played
sorry.
knight f5, by the way. He played bishop f5, which I'm assuming is just as winning. Actually, looks just as winning. I guess.
Sorry, you wanted to take a. Oops, I got the wrong game. What
Yeah,
am
that
I-
game is done?
it's the Dingler end game.
Yes, the
Okay.
Dingler end game. Because he
So-
has played the move knight d2.
He didn't play b7 as expected
He
at
played
this
the move
moment.
d6.
b7 with the idea rook b1 was the computer's first choice. d6.
Interesting. He threw in.
Well,
that
okay,
pawn.
you can't play knight takes e6. That would be suicidal after bishop takes, right?
Clear.
Okay, so rook takes was forced. Now.
Okay,
now
it looks
these-
really bad if I just play something like rook b1, threatening b7.
Right.
I assume you have to play bishop b7,
B7.
to prevent that.
Okay, that's actually winning a piece.
Freeze frame, guys. Sorry.
Yes.
Another count. 13 seconds on the
Okay.
clock for Kirill.
Let's
13 only.
switch
Now down to
over.
8, waiting for a move. He's finally moved, and he did play with 10 seconds left. It looked like when it jumped back to
B7.
110. So that's a bit strange. I thought it was a 30-second increment, right? It should jump
Yeah.
back. It looked like he had only had 10 seconds
And
left.
that
Might have
looks-
not
But
be
now he
so
just played-
precise.
That looks like checkmate.
Bishop E7. Now, clearly, Bishop G4 should just end the game, right?
Right.
Yeah.
They should just.
Mate.
I mean, what do you do? This is just a toss move with no time on the clock. There's no way Fabi's not going to just take this piece. He's not going to take the rook, obviously. He's going to take this knight, and then he's just going to waltz in. This is resignable. Just the last throws, death throws, as Kirill will go down. He'll go down to a complete crush. The problem when you're playing in this tournament, the lowest rated player playing against the big dogs, is losing badly. You'd like to lose some long end game. Show that you had spirit. Show that you had fight. Don't let the guy say, no, you're not good enough. We're coming here to destroy you. And the moment you start trending badly, we're going to keep pushing you in that direction. And right now, Fabi's showing, dude, I'm telling you, you don't belong on this stage with us. That's how he wants to be a boss in this
Right.
kind of game.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, bishop takes g4 looks actually like forced mate. I mean,
I think you have to give up a rook or something.
Yeah, like some bishop g5,
G5
move or something. Yeah, this looks
The kind of
really,
moves you
really-
don't play, you just resign.
Yeah, because you're just looking at
just
mate in
checkmate.
one, and if you go back, you're looking at mate in one. Oops, excuse me, that was a mouse slip. That would be horrendous. Mate in one. So it's just looking like.
And Bishop
mate,
G4 has been played.
and
we're just waiting for
mate on the
resignation.
board.
No,
This
he has
one-
taken momentum.
Really?
He has taken. The momentum is just pushing him forward right now.
Right.
He's just going to make any move that he can make in the meantime. But of course,
We used to-
Fabi with too much time on his clock and extremely calm.
We used to say that in my day that when our opponent was in extreme time trouble, he didn't have enough time to resign.
resign.
I mean, you're playing on adrenaline.
Yeah.
Also, you don't want to lose under 30.
I know.
Right?
because
There's something about that. You don't-
You're in the new book of short victories.
That's right. Let's inspect the miniatures. The best miniatures in candidates tournaments. And they're going to pick yours as one of them.
Exactly.
No. Mine went like 33, buddy. That's not a miniature.
You
No
drag
cap.
it out
Yeah.
for a long time.
Play as long as you can play, because the numbers are going to matter in somebody's book a long time from now. But yeah, see, he even played Queen. As to show you, he even played Bishop G5. Seriously, you said who plays Bishop G5? I mean, come on.
Right.
You don't. No. It's move 33.
You're right. The
Let him-
miniature.
if after he takes on G5, we'll trade queens.
Right.
With my king, and then I'll look at.
I lost an ending.
Yeah.
I lost it.
Exactly.
I was so close.
That was so close. That's just cruel, Yasser.
Or maybe the memo is, wait, I thought I couldn't resign before move 40. Oh, you mean I couldn't draw before 40? I'm sorry, it was a mistake on my part.
Oh my goodness.
We're having too much fun at his expense.
I
know, it
gotta
is
pull
me.
you back to the MVL game
we have
because
to let's
Yeah, this one is we'll call this one in a moment. Fabi didn't even take the bishop, excuse me. Fabi played Queen H5 in this position. He said, you're not going to resign. I'm not going to trade queens. It's not going to be an end game. You obviously can't play F6 because you're going to get murdered by this knight and queen. I mean, you're not resigning? Let me torture you. Man, this is rough right now.
Just a second. If I'm the guy's trainer, I'm looking for the towel. Where's
get him out
my
of there.
guy's taking
Get him
too
out.
many hits. He's taking too many hits.
Oh,
you know,
that's
like,
an
oh
ouch.
my God.
No,
move.
but
MVL.
guys, really need to see the MVL game. Okay,
MVL.
Kirill will resign. Just let us know when he resigns. But what's
Right.
going on? Because I see a 98, I see a B7.
And that's what we've got.
What's going on here?
What happened was we saw Rook B1.
And we kind of assumed Bishop B7 was forced.
Except it wasn't.
It wasn't.
Yeah, B7 is the big threat, threatening to trap a piece. And the alternative was probably the best chance for Dinglerin. He played knight to D8, stopping B7, and I don't know. King takes F5, and black is uncomfortably still kicking.
Excuse
right?
me, 98 is a massive blunder.
Oh, really?
Massive blunder because it doesn't stop B7.
Oh, that's
doesn't
yeah. You
stop.
just take
It
on
just doesn't
B7.
stop B7. You can't take with the knight because you
94.
interrupt your bishop's action. 94 kills. And we do have a finish in the Caruana game.
Okay.
Mercifully, he resigned finally. But now bishop takes B7, and look at all those scrumptious pieces lined up. The move bishop A5, and there's nothing you can do. Your bishop can't leave because of the bishop on B8. Bishop takes knight as the threat, and how do you just
lose a piece.
You just lose a
losing a
piece for
piece.
nothing, and that's
Right.
it. So knight D8 seals his fate. If he was trying to survive
B7
this
on the
game,
board. He'll resign.
and B7 now on the board. So back to back, we're going to see on two boards victories happen almost simultaneously. Fabi just won, and now we see MVL about to win. B7 is a knockout punch. And by the way, we were talking about black winning. Winning with black yesterday.
Yeah.
Not today.
Not today.
Black took it on the chin twice, horribly, and is suffering in the other game.
Bishop takes B7 played. Bishop A5 played instantly by MVL. I expect Dinglerin to just throw in the towel. That is a full piece.
And he's going to go to -2.
He's going to go to -2.
Wow. Well, you talked about this not only yesterday, but at the top of the show today, Maurice, losing in the candidates. You can lose, but you got to lose late. You can't lose early. And losing 2 games, anybody ever come back from that kind of deficit?
To win? No, of course not.
It's just
No,
Michael Tal.
Michael Tal actually did lose 2 games early in his campaign. He lost his first game.
Okay.
28
28
round
games.
No,
tournament.
hold on. Yes, I know. But I'm
Right.
saying he lost his first game. He won his second game.
Gotcha.
Didn't lose 2 in a row. Man. He won his second game. He lost his third game. So he did lose 2 out of the first 3, which is a pretty bad start. But then he won the next game and broke back to even. So bounce back, he did that.
Right.
He had to at least do that. Then he drew his next game, and then he started winning. He won 3 in a row. So he was able to right the ship. So but to lose and then lose again, man, this is a Herculean task right now for Dinglerin. You can almost write him off and out of the tournament now.
Wow.
Clearly, you can't say that has to be the case. But the odds makers, whatever you had up here, his stock just dropped precipitously as he has lost. I don't think he's resigned yet. Bishop A5 on the board still, but his disastrous beginning. Looking at him here, I mean, you couldn't look. This is not the this is not Yekaterinburg. This is here in St. Louis.
Right.
But this is the look of a man who has all his hopes and dreams. He prepared for months after winning the Grand Chess Tour. He prepared for months for this event.
Tournaments.
He skipped events. He said, "This is it. This is my dream come true." You cannot put too fine a point on this. These players get very scant opportunities every 2 years to be able to challenge the best player on the planet. You can age out as young stars are coming. They're not sitting back. There's all kinds of young stars who are hungry for their opportunity to come to the world stage. So when you get a chance like this, it's huge. It's massive opportunity in your career. He'll be back, no question about it. He might even be back in this tournament. We'll see the fortitude he can show. But you hate when your one chance, the candidates itself is staring at you, and you don't do it. You could be depressed for months.
It's done. He has resigned. MVL. Let's talk about MVL. He comes into the tournament, replaces Timur Rajabov, and boom, +1 from the get-go. He did start with 2 whites, but What a way to begin.
I've seen these Cinderella stories time and time again. MVL, incredibly depressed, incredibly disappointed that he didn't make the candidates. I mean, he came so close in so many different ways, whether it be the World Cup, the Grand Prix, rating-wise, every kind of way he could qualify. He was just like half in. Yeah. And then suddenly he's invited as one of the players. Timor steps out. And he's sort of like, what? What? You're giving me a chance? You're letting me in there? And guess what? Today, at the moment, he's tied for first.
Excuse me, he just played Fabiano Caruana and Ding Liren, and he's +1.
That's pretty darn good.
He's not just tied for first.
Right.
He took the numbers 1 and 2 and said, I'm +1 against those guys.
Right.
Who else is in?
Yeah.
Watch out.
Right.
We talked about this before. This tournament is not about rating. This tournament is about hunger and form. That's what it's about. Who's the hungriest, the one who wants it the most, and how well are you playing in this specific moment in time? We've seen Ding Liren. This is not Ding Liren. This is a shell of himself at the moment. Ding Liren is a boss. Ding Liren is a superstar. But if you're not in form in an individual event, the event just passes. You could win the next one and the one after that. You could have won stuff before. But if you're not in form in that event, it doesn't matter. It's about hunger when you come in, and form simultaneous. You can't just want it. You've got to be hot at the right time. And it looks like it's too early to call, but we got a couple of people, at least 3 players, I would say, if not 4 players, who are sort of separating themselves in our minds right now and looking pretty good. Boy, Fabi looked good today.
Yeah, let's take a look at the standings, Alejandro.
Well, with
2 big victories.
2 big victories. 1 game still remaining. Anish Giri still, let's say, defending against Wang Hao in a complicated position. Fabiano Caruana and MVL have won their games against Kirill Alexenko and Ding Liren, respectively. Meanwhile, Jan Nepomniachtchi drew against Alexander Grischuk, and therefore we have a 3-way tie at the top with 4.5 points. We do expect Wang Hao to either tie with them or surpass them, as we do like his position.
Right.
But we know that anything can happen still.
Right, a 2-result game, certainly favorable to Wang Hao, and what a start for him. Yeah. MVL, by the way, when Maurice put it in those terms, I played number 1 and number 2, and I got +1.
Who's left?
Yeah, like, wow.
No, an amazing start from somebody that
was just happy to be here.
Happy to be there.
Right.
And France was so happy. I mean, when the news came out that he was replacing Timur, there was no like, oh, what happened to Timur? Maybe this is wrong, maybe this is right. They were elated.
Exactly.
Finally, MVL gets his chance.
Exactly.
And here he is, +1.
Wow.
And he's showing, by the way, that, you know, there have been controversies around this tournament. This is probably the most controversial candidates we've seen in I don't know how long. I mean, I don't know, Yasser, if you have a memory of something this controversial. First of all, the extraordinary events that our world really are dealing with right now. With the pandemic, for that to influence the chess world, all these events that got canceled as a result, many people saying that this should have been canceled. Then Radyabov pulls out and says, I don't want to play, not under these conditions. I think you guys should maybe stop the tournament. FIDE deciding, no, we're going to do it. We think we can handle the situation regardless. That argument between them, the controversy, many people still believing that this tournament maybe should still cancel it in some way, but now it's on. Then suddenly MVL appearing in the tournament.
Right.
Also, I'd like to add the controversy around the wild card system. People saying maybe the wild card should be abolished because it doesn't seem fair that countries can just throw in their best player, even if it doesn't seem as though that player will not be competitive against the top players in the field. The people who argue for the pros of that, yeah, he shouldn't be playing. They're saying today, yeah, that's right. Kirill doesn't belong. Now, if he had won, history would have said something else. So this is an extraordinary circumstances. And by the way, we should point out that Fabiano Caruana will be on Skype with us shortly. Amazing. All the way from Yekaterinburg after such a victory. He must be absolutely elated. We'll be chatting with him.
And we'll do that on the other side of a break, Alejandro.
We'll take a quick one, and we'll be right back. Don't leave us. We still have 1 game remaining, and we'll have Fabiano Caruana, America's number 1, with us in just a second.
Okay. Thanks, guys. We're going to take a quick break from candidates coverage and talk a little bit about opening traps. I have some very nice, kind of deep, dark opening secrets to share with you guys. And we're going to start with kind of looking at one of my favorite openings in chess, one of my favorite gambits. This is a Stafford gambit. And it emerges from a Petrov after e4, e5, knight f3, knight f6, knight takes e5. Black does not play the traditional pawn d6, but rather plays knight c6. And after takes. This looks honestly really bad for black. Black's down a pawn, has these double pawns on the c-file, and on top of that, it's white's move. And I'll say that this opening is not objectively good. However, there's so many landmines that white can walk into. So over the next 3 to 4 minutes, I'm going to try and show as many traps as possible and share why this is a really, really nasty opening. So let's imagine white plays kind of an intriguing move here, pawn e5, attacking the knight, seizing initiative. Black can respond with knight to e4. And now let's say white gets a little bit careless and plays one of the most natural-looking moves, pawn d3, kicking the knight yet again. It turns out black has a winning move here, and the move is bishop c5, just counter-attacking, attacking f2 pawn. And if white takes the knight on e4, this walks into just devastation. Bishop takes f2. If king takes f2, the queen is lost. And otherwise, king e2 walks into bishop g4. And again, the queen will be lost for white. So going back, let's imagine white doesn't play e5, but rather plays a seemingly solid move, pawn to d3. Black can still go ahead, play bishop c5. Now you should notice if white plays pawn e5, black can respond with knight e4, and that would be a direct transposition. So let's imagine white plays bishop to g5 here. This looks very natural, pinning the knight to the queen. However, this is again a losing move. Black has a brilliant idea. Knight takes e4, queen sacrifice. After bishop takes d8, it's a very simple mate in 2. This is known as Legal's mate, and white can cry in sadness. So going back, bishop d5 is just a blunder. Knight takes e4 is again just winning for black. If pawn takes knight, we have the same tactic, bishop takes f2, and the king will be kind of driven away from its lady on d1. So let's look at another move. Let's say knight c3. This is probably one of the most common traps that I've seen players fall into, where white can either start with knight c3 or start with d3, but essentially if white gets this position, white's already in big trouble after knight to g4, and now we see there's tremendous problems for white defending f2. Really the only move for white to try and save f2 is bishop e3, but this gives back a pawn after knight takes e3, pawn takes e3, bishop takes e3. This is a great position for black. The bishop is dominant. It can be reinforced with queen g5, and white is really suffering here. So let's go back to our main position after pawn takes c6. And now I want to show my favorite trap. And the trap I'm about to show is something I've had countless times online, and it's something that players as strong as FM, IM, even GM have fallen into. And it starts with a very natural sequence. Knight to c3, defending the pawn, bishop to c5. Remember, d3 walks into knight g4. So let's say white plays safe. Let's say white plays bishop to e2. It's very safe, a solid-looking move. Black can go ahead and play h5. And, I mean, this is highly, highly aggressive, but the idea is to play knight to g4. So let's say white plays another safe move, pawn h3. Turns out, after pawn h3, white is pretty much on the verge of losing. And there's a simply incredible sequence here for black, which, if you want to, you can pause the video, but I'll go ahead and show it. Starting with queen to d4, threatening mate. White has kind of the natural move to castle here, but now black is going to continue throwing punches. Knight to g4, hitting the pawn on f2, and kind of using this fishing pole idea. Where now, if pawn takes g4, pawn takes g4, white's actually in really, really big trouble here. And let's imagine white plays a move like d3. Then after queen e5, there's no defending the mate threat on h2. If pawn g3, then queen takes g3 is check and mate. So now I want to show kind of the nicest line in this variation. Rather than pawn to d3, let's say white plays pawn g3. And again, this is a position I've had many times in online blitz. Black can continue initiative, queen e5, threatening mate in 1. Also threatening queen h5. So the only reasonable move to defend is king g2. And now there's a beautiful, beautiful knockout blow. Bishop takes f2. And it turns out white is just going to be defenseless. Let's imagine rook takes f2. There is queen h5. And there's really no stopping the idea of queen h3. And this is pretty much resignable for whites. If you don't trust me, you can check with the engine. But one more line, let's imagine king takes f2. Then rook h2. The only way for white not to get mated is to move forward with the king. But then after queen takes g3, king d4, this is just a really, really fun position. I've had this position a couple times in online blitz, and the simple move to play is bishop e6, and this is absolutely crushing for black with the idea just to castle queenside with check and continue punishing the white king. So I think that's all the time we have. I really hope you guys enjoyed that. Be sure, if you do play any dirty opening traps, that you sanitize your hands. Very important in this era that we live in. And yeah, stay tuned for more action, and we'll be back with more coverage of the candidates.
Welcome back to the second round of the Candidates 2020. We already have 3 results of the day, 2 of them decisive. What a way to start the tournament. Fabiano just destroying Kirill Alexenko. And speaking of Fabiano Caruana, yes, he is with us via Skype from Yekaterinburg. Fabi, how are you doing?
Hi.
Hey.
Good, good.
Well, tell us about the game, tell us about the tournament, tell us about the conditions, tell us about everything.
Well, the game was comfortable today. It seemed to go pretty smoothly. I got a position from the opening which was extremely sharp, and that was kind of what I was looking for when I played f3. And I think he mixed up his lines, or he couldn't remember exactly what he was doing. And rook e6 struck me as kind of strange, but it did remain very messy. And I thought his last mistake was probably bishop takes d6 rather than knight f6, which looked like a better chance to fight on.
Yeah, we were talking about that knight f6 move. Where do you feel he really went wrong, or where was your prep ending? You said rook e6 struck you as weird, but were other moves part of your prep?
Yeah, I had prepared something, but I couldn't quite remember it because he's never played this line before. So this was stuff that I had checked in the past and hadn't really expected today. So Rook E6, I was completely on my own. Before that, I was trying to remember the theory of the position, but it all seemed a bit unfamiliar to me. I remembered some motives and some lines, like Rook B8 I remembered is a move, but after Rook E6 I was completely on my own.
Okay. Now, you mentioned you wanted a sharp position against him. Is it because specifically it was Kirill Aleksenko and he's the lowest rated player, or is it because you just want to get a sharp position every game?
No, it had nothing to do with him. I thought it could be interesting against him because he's seems to be a bit less experienced in the openings in terms of preparing for top events and preparing openings. So I thought it might be possible to get an interesting position and possibly with his line, but it wasn't because it had nothing to do with his rating. I was just looking for a fight. I mean, in this tournament, at some point you have to start creating chances for yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Fabi, first of all, hearty congratulations. A nice game. I just got to ask you a question because your move, Bishop H2, really did surprise me. I think that most players would have just played Queen D2. What dissuaded you from Queen D2, and were you anticipating this whole line that happened in the game with G4 that came later?
Yeah, I kind of I thought the p-sac would lead to an advantage for me, and Queen D2 I didn't really like because of Bishop takes F3, followed by Rook D4. I thought this might be good for white, but it seemed a little bit of a mess.
Okay.
Rook D4, and then it's difficult to put my queen. I mean, my Bishop on F4 is now hanging in a lot of lines. It would much rather be on H2.
Exactly.
At least that was my thinking, and I thought Bishop H2 is the ideal move to make. I mean, if he doesn't sack the piece, then he really ends up in a bad position. And I thought the piece sack would be. I kind of looked at D3, and kind of F6 was my only real concern. And then I was planning to play Rook E1.
Rook E1.
Which has a nice trick. He takes on E4, plays Queen D6, or inverts the move forward or whatever.
Yep.
And now knight D5, and it's important that Queen G6, Queen G2, I have this knight F6 tactic.
Queen
Otherwise,
G2 and you cannot take the rook.
Yeah, and the endgame I think is very pleasant for white. I'm not sure if it's going to be winning or anything, but it looks like a free chance to win, basically. I mean,
right.
Even if I play knight E7 at some point, but with my rook, my piece is much stronger than his 3 pawns.
All right.
Good judgment. I like it.
No,
Nice.
it definitely had a very nice visual appeal. It just felt you were better throughout the game. Tell us a little bit about the conditions surrounding the event. Is it comfortable to play? Is it psychologically difficult? Tell us a little bit about how the players are feeling, especially you.
I don't think anyone's too comfortable about it. I'm definitely not comfortable about it. Our temperature is taken twice a day, in the morning and night. And for example, today I showed a temperature of 98.7 degrees. And this provoked a panic, basically. No, I'm not even kidding. Like they called politicians to figure out the situation. The doctor started making phone calls, and I had to go through another screening, I guess. So I went through 2 temperature checks. It still showed the same temperature, which is the normal temperature, but apparently in this part of Russia, 98.7 counts as a fever.
Wait, what?
Wow.
So that I mean, everyone's extremely paranoid. They're not great conditions to play under, but
Nobody
I
wants
guess
to
we have no
shake your
choice.
hand, Fabi.
Well, that's fine. I can avoid the physical contact.
Fabi, what are your thoughts? You must be as shocked as we are watching one of your main rivals lose the first 2 games. Of course, I'm speaking about Ding Liren.
Yeah, I think it's clear that he's suffering psychologically from everything that happened. I mean, it must be especially difficult since it started in his country, and I'm sure he has family and friends who have been exposed to the risk for far longer than when it started to reach the rest of the world, and now, of course, everyone is affected by this, but he's been one of the weeks in Moscow. All these things can't be good for your chest, and I think that explains his poor start.
And for you, Fabi, you came from Germany, but you had a little bit of a scare yourself in terms of getting to Russia. Your flight had been canceled. In the end, it all worked out well, but you were probably a little bit jittery yourself.
Yeah, we found out that Aeroflot was canceling. I was given a visa for the 13th for some reason. At the time, we were a bit annoyed by that it was on the 13th, but it wasn't up to us. You know, the Russian government gave it to us. But we thought it wouldn't be a big deal. We planned to arrive the 11th, but okay, we changed our plans to the 13th, and the situation in the world was not at the point where we thought we might actually have trouble getting to Russia. And then a few days before we were going to leave, we saw an announcement that it had canceled most of its flights starting the 13th.
Right.
And except for flights from main hubs, like we were going to fly through Dusseldorf, but they canceled all flights in Germany except through Frankfurt. So then we looked for an alternative solution, and we realized that Prague would fly direct to Yekaterinburg, which seemed ideal because Prague at the time, Czech Republic at the time, had registered very few cases and hadn't really shown hadn't shown much concern that, for example, they would close their borders. Well, the very next day, they closed their borders. So, and there was a general advisory that anyone coming into the country would be put under 2 weeks quarantine. So we quickly canceled that flight so that we wouldn't be stuck for 2 weeks in Prague. And we scheduled on the 12th in the evening, we scheduled a flight through Frankfurt to Moscow and Moscow to Yekaterinburg. And 1 hour after we booked the flight, we left the house in a rush, and we arrived. We left at 5 in the evening, I think, more or less, in Germany time, Central European time, and then we arrived in Yekaterinburg at 11 in the morning the next day. And I mean, it wasn't pleasant, but we were just happy to get here in the end.
If I may, Fabi, you said some things. Those was really difficult conditions. Probably you've never had similar conditions. The only thing I can think about is maybe Anand trying to play his match against Topalov, was it?
Right.
Having to do some ridiculous things in order to get to an event. What is the mindset of an elite competitor like yourself when the conditions around you may not be so great, but you have to perform well? What are the kind of things that maybe you talk about with your second? Advice you might give to folks in such a trying situation?
I mean, I don't know if I could give advice because I'm not sure I'm good at it myself, dealing with these things. But I mean, at least one thing is that when you sit down at the board, you usually tend to forget about everything else that's going on. And I think that's mostly because I've been playing chess for so long, and that's sort of what you have to do. And at some point, you get used to it. That whatever is going on in your life, you kind of forget it when you sit down. But this is sort of unprecedented. I mean, Vichy's case was very difficult. A volcano erupted in Iceland and kind of spewed smoke and ash all over Europe, and they postponed the World Championship match by a few days, I think. And he traveled through Europe in a bus or some such situation. Our travel situation wasn't that bad, but the situation in general is much worse. It's not a volcano; it's something which affects the entire world and has already kind of cost a lot of people their lives. So yeah, it's not a great situation, but what can you do?
Fabi, last question from me before we let you go. Did FIDE make the right decision? pushing the tournament against all odds while everybody else is canceling their events? No March Madness here in America, no NBA?
Maxime just walked right next to me, that's why I'm laughing. But I'm not sure. It's too early to say. It's also not entirely clear if the tournament will reach its conclusion without being postponed. I mean, you never know what's going to go on. Generally speaking, I would say no. I think that it probably should have been postponed, but it's also a very difficult situation, so I can't really blame them for not wanting to let it go. God knows how many months in the future, and
Right.
The situation is unpredictable, and we wouldn't know. We'd also have this tournament hanging over our heads for basically the next year, and it wouldn't be a great solution either.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Fabi. Good luck in the rest of the tournament.
Thank you.
Watch your temperature.
98.7. Sounds dangerous.
It sounds like a good radio station. My goodness. Thank you. Good luck, Fabi.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Cheers. And as we get set up for another interview, I knew it was bad in terms of his travel. I just didn't know it was that bad.
For Fabi.
For Fabi.
Yeah,
the
it was
visa?
really bad. Well, the visa was a strange situation because they had requested it for the 11th when they wanted to arrive. And
Get early there.
Yeah, Russia gave them the visa for the 13th, despite the first round being on the 17th, which for an elite event, it's pretty late.
Yeah.
You still have the opening ceremony before, so technically the tournament's starting on like the 16th, 15th.
earlier.
You already have some technical meetings.
Right.
So it was a pretty
Players
late
meeting,
arrival.
appeals committee,
Right.
getting your medical certificate committee. I mean, everybody wants to be double checked, and also the security. Just nobody's cheating and everything else. But we do have a new interview.
Well, hello to another winner of the day. It's Maxime Vachier-Lagrave joining us from Yekaterinburg. Curiously, a very similar background. How are you, Maxime?
Yes, hi, how are you?
Well,
We're good. How are
we're good.
You're the guy over there suffering.
Well, supposedly, Russia is safer than the United States in terms of coronavirus, so I should really ask you how you're doing.
We're practicing good hygiene, sanitizing every 20 minutes or so, and just social distancing. Namaste.
Yes.
But tell us about today's game.
Yeah, it just went very nicely. I thought I got a great position out of the opening.
Right.
And then when I managed to cover all of his counterplay with knight h2, for instance.
Yeah, we love the move knight h2,
Knight-
clamping down on the king side. But it just seems that the position by this point has become bad. Where do you think he went wrong and you got that nice edge?
Yeah, because I think f5 was misguided because I thought his idea was get take, rook a8, bishop a8, c4, and then bishop f6. Pawn takes b5, bishop f6, pawn takes b5, queen f7. But then I noticed bishop g5 is probably very strong.
Uh-huh.
So...
But even this, I must say, was probably better for him than the game, because what happened in the game was really, really, how do you say, a total crush. We thought...
my bishop
panic mode.
My bishop, I think at some point he went into panic mode, but because after bishop, so after knight h2, he probably realized there's no way to stop bishop c4 and the b4, so he went desperation, king g7, king g6. But I just played g4, and why is my king less safe than his king, especially with his bishop on a8 just dead. And I was still a bit concerned after he played f4, but then I noticed his b4, and if it takes, no queen e4 check, king g7, knight f3, And very importantly, knight g8 fails to knight g4.
Right.
Ooh, nasty.
It's a crusher.
That's a nasty move.
Yeah, knight f6, queen f5, and just you can resign.
Right. Nice.
So that was the point of b4. And then in the game, I mean, okay, bishop b6, like bishop c5, d4 again, bishop d4, knight f3, and double attack. Just, again, his bishop on a8 is just out of the game, so there's not much to hope for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Maxime, tell us, we haven't gotten a chance to speak to you. Tell us your feelings once you found out that you were going to play, and the challenge it's been not being able to prepare as much as everybody else, but at the same time being elated at the opportunity.
Yeah, really, I didn't expect it to happen, but yeah, the situation got a bit confusing, but at the same time, I mean, it's a great opportunity for me, so I didn't think twice when FIDE announced me that there was a free spot. I mean, first they announced me that possibly there was going to be a free spot, so would I be, considering playing if that happened? And I said, of course, yes. And then, like 2 days later, they withdrew from the tournament.
So basically, by around March 4th, he knew that maybe there was a possibility, which means that you were...
Actually, no, March 5. March 5 in the morning. Wait, I don't remember.
Okay, so the 4th or the 5th, you knew.
The 4th or 5th.
Yeah.
Maxime, you were not really ready to play candidates, right? You were vacationing in New York, you were having a great time, and suddenly you had to change your mindset in just a couple of weeks to face the best of the best. What did you do?
Especially considering the situation right now, it was a good thing that I got these vacations, because I don't think I'm going anywhere near New York for the...
Whoa. Don't talk about my hometown, Maxime.
No, it's not about that. I mean,
Right.
I cannot literally get in.
This is true.
Right. Wow.
And, but yeah, I mean, enough jokes, because of course the situation right now with the coronavirus is actually very worrying, and of course I'm taking the opportunity to tell everyone, I mean, from the US, from France, and from every country to stay home and to practice social distancing as much as possible, no matter how annoying it may be.
Exactly. Fabiano mentioned that everybody's getting testing twice a day, and that he actually was 98.7. How is your testing going for you personally?
So far normal. Like I saw some measurements, and well, I don't know how that translates in Fahrenheit, but I was a little. I mean, I was lower than 37 degrees. So.
Would
yeah,
you say 30,
probably 97.
37 degrees.
37.
37.
Yeah, a little bit lower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's 97 in terms of, I don't remember. Well, anyway. So yeah, so far it is normal. I mean, of course, I mean, if, there's a panic, because of Fabi getting a bit higher than, 98.7 or something. Of course, it's a bit strange, but and at some point they expect someone to get supposedly real fever, because that's generally what happens in such a long tournament. So we'll see how it proceeds. But of course, they're monitoring the situation very closely, and depending on, for instance, authorities' orders, the tournament might get postponed at any moment.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Your mindset, I had asked Fabi this, your mindset that keeps you strong. What do you talk to your, I'm talking to my family and friends and saying stay positive and productive, keeping their minds clear, make sure you're doing something. Don't just sit around and watch television and get more and more depressed. Find something to do. Be stronger out of this than weaker. Be more optimistic than fearful. What are you discussing with your friends and family, or your second right there with you? You know, you don't need to tell us who that is, but how do you keep a positive mindset?
So with me, there's actually nobody because there was no time to get anyone. So I'm in Yekaterinburg alone, but of course I have support from my family, from my friends, and from the people who work for me, who also happen to be friends. I mean, especially Etienne, and you know, it's just a bit weird to to be doing absolutely nothing apart from the chess tournament. But I guess the chess is a decent motivator so far to to keep paying attention, and well, this time I'm not disturbed by the NBA or by the soccer or by anything else. Yeah, I just have the chess to focus on, and I hope to bring some enjoyment to the chess fans and along with the competition.
Well, truly, Maxime, you guys are the only game in town. The sports programs are really boring these days. So, I mean, you've got the eyes of the world on you.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a weird experience, and yeah, we'll see, of course, how the situation keeps on developing in every country. And, of course, I'm thinking about France because the situation is currently not out of control, but it could get to there very soon.
Maxime, we want to thank you so much for joining us. We want to wish you good luck for the rest of the tournament, and stay healthy.
Stay healthy, stay safe.
Yes, we're all trying.
We're all star crazy. We're all star crazy, Maxime. We're all in the same boat.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well,
and
thank you,
some
Maxime.
breaking news, Maurice, in the remaining game.
Absolutely, we do have a breaking news, and it is, while we were speaking, Wang Hao, who will be absolutely the shocker of the tournament, has pocketed a pawn against Anish Giri and is looking to try to go to 2-0 and be the clear leader in this event. Man, if you had said Ding Liren was 2-0 and Wang Hao was 0-2, I think a lot of people would say, yeah, that sounds like normal. But this situation is completely flipped, and it is Wang Hao who's trying to press right now and prove himself, and we will show you the position on the board after B4. Anish captured on B4. The Indians did not like that move, crystallizing the second weakness. When you have a position, we know endgame technique says one weakness is generally not enough. But the principle of two weaknesses is that now we're going to extend the defense. We're going to make it harder for you to protect your position because there's second weakness on the board. And yes, you had this pawn. That was fine. But now this B pawn has become another possible victim. Rook to A8 played, jettisoning the B pawn. It's under pressure, by the way. There's a bishop and a knight able to take it. But at the moment, some tactics stopping him. But Wang Hao defended completely and then finally played Rook C1. Looking to play Rook C5, and here we saw Giri jettison the pawn and now play Rook to A3. He is currently down a full pawn. The D pawn we were worried about. Who knew the B pawn would be the one that dropped in this position? Plus, he has this great bishop. We'll try to push this down the board. Guys, this looks winning.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it looks like everything that you could possibly
Wow,
want.
I
You have a
mean,
weakness still to attack. You
got
still have a pass pawn. You got the bishop. You got a better
minor
structure.
piece.
And you've got your rook behind the pass pawn. That rook on B2. I mean, once
of a
you play
monster.
bishop D3 and B5, it's like lights out.
This is technical.
Whoa.
This is technical for now.
And by the way, I think that Wang Hao, like many of his countrymen, Chinese players, are very good technically.
Yes.
Ding Liren plays an excellent technical game, as does Wang Hao. And Anish Giri?
That was weird.
I mean,
That was
but
weird,
the
all
man who
weakness.
never
But
loses goes down
If we go
0-2?
back, even before Maurice started analyzing, because we left this a while ago.
Yes. Right.
But this idea of A6,
And
B5.
Yeah, the combination of those
The combination of those two are very strange because
Yep.
there's a bishop on F1 that it's an okay bishop, but
Right.
once you put a pawn on B5, the
That's
bishop.
right.
says,
Yeah, hey, thank
give
you
me
very
the
much.
diagonal.
Yeah,
Thank you
I've
for
got
the
like
weaknesses.
A4 and my bishop on F1
I mean,
suddenly could work.
In the Spanish, you go bishop b5, a4, c2, d3, f1, so that you have this a6, b5 target.
That's right.
Exactly.
And he willingly created a second weakness in the position, and that was really shocking. I think he thought he was creating counterplay, but there's always a drawback to every idea,
Yeah.
and the drawback here was highlighted by this set of moves. Wang Hao said, "Thank you so much for pushing. I couldn't have begged you to. Could I have paid you money to give me something else to target?"
I think he had to go before.
Yeah, by the way, this move knight c3 to e2, it has echoes of the move knight f3 h2 by Maxime.
Right.
You get out of the way of the pawn storm, and you say, oh, by the way, thank you for creating some weakness.
I still
Anish wasn't. He didn't sit on the position.
No.
Sometimes when you're on the defensive side, you make your position a lot worse when you go active mode, like a6, b5.
And I've seen Anand do this wonderfully. When he gets his kind of isolated pawns,
Yeah.
I know they're slightly worse for black, and Anand makes them look equal. Like you
Yeah.
just have no problems at all. He does nothing.
Yeah.
White can't do anything either.
That's right.
And he just
Patience.
holds. He holds with an
Patience.
incredible patience. But it's so difficult for most people to do that.
Me too.
I mean, look at Giri. He's one of the best defenders in the entire world.
Right.
And he goes a6, b5, a5.
Looking for counterplay.
Looking for that counterplay.
Yeah.
And it backfires. I'm not saying that his plan is bad. It might not be bad. But his execution at some point...
It was right here. It was right here, by the way. The Indian said, "Don't open up the game
This
with the move
is-
captures
with
on
the capture on
B4,
B4.
and crystallize." And you know who's trying to attack?
White.
White's trying to attack. Who wants the game more open?
White.
Because when the game opens up, the one with the initiative will start to speak. So you better have something when you're creating my weaknesses, because you got yours too.
Well, this is a very interesting position because you think you open up the A file and the C file, and look at that. Black is controlling both files right now. You have a rook on C7 and rook on A8. Problem is that once I take control over one file,
Right.
I penetrate as white.
Yeah.
As black, I'm not really doing very much
right.
with these files.
Well, the other problem, as I see it, is the pawn on b5. So rook b2 sets up a capture, and now that the pawn on b4 is defended, once more, now we're going to capture that pawn. We want to play bishop takes b5. And
now thanks for the file that
Exactly.
you
That's
have
right.
opened.
You've got to
Yeah, you
concede a
created
file. Why? Because remember when the knight was doing so beautiful work on e7?
Yeah.
It was making the two rooks look ridiculous.
On the
Now it looks ridiculous as it's not participating in the game at all. If we could just move it one square diagonally, put it on the
on
d6
D6.
square.
So sweet.
Ooh, so sweet, so juicy. Maybe land on c4 later. Oh, everything works. But no, e7, poorly placed suddenly, and so happy was Wang Hao that the game just shifted to open files, a separate weakness to attack as well, and that knight on on e7. By the way, the bishop on d7, only a defensive piece as well. So everything wrong with this plan of advancing on the queen side. He should have sat and waited. With the knight on d4, by the way, you see that beautiful blockade. We talk about this sometimes before all this happened.
Yeah.
The knight sitting on d4, beautiful blockading piece. Oh, no, nothing to do about it. But if you only are blockading the pawn, you're not attacking it. So who cares? That's not a problem. You've got the pawn on d5. But that's not what Anish did. He simply started making active moves and ruined his own position.
Well, the blockading knight suddenly became an attacking knight.
Attacking
as well.
knight.
Yeah.
But it's not worried about the d pawn anymore. It's got a target.
I was a little bit surprised by the move bishop e2. I thought that with the move rook a3, black's eyeballing an opportunity to try to attack the pawn on e3. I thought that rook to d1 is, for example, rook d1, knight d3, bishop.
I like bishop e2 because it's a tactical solution. Bishop e2, you can't play knight f5, if I can calculate it correctly.
Let's do it.
Because I think you just push.
B pawn, baby.
It's just push him, baby.
Is that all?
Knight e3, b6, rook b7, rook c7. I don't care about my pawn on e3.
No, this is
The pawn on e3 is
This
not
is
a
a
part of the
piece.
game.
It's not part of
that's
the game.
right. That's irrelevant.
Okay, you got your material back, but I'm queening.
This is crushing.
That's
This is
pretty,
absolutely
that's pretty
crushing.
sad. If you're queenie, you know, like, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Okay, so that's what it's all about. You're just going to play after the move bishop e2. You're just going to play, as you said,
Pass
push
pawns,
your
most
baby.
people-
When I take a look at these positions, normally I see, okay, where's black's fight, right? Black has this counterplay, and okay, the b pawn, I'll protect the b pawn with this. But right now I'm like, how do I stop this pawn?
Yeah.
I'm not even thinking about counterplay and blockades and all these things. How do I just stop it?
Right.
I'm playing b5, b6, rook c7. The knight it's really weird, but the knight can't really come down to play.
Looks
It wants to go to
terrible.
b6. This knight wants to go to
Right.
b6 and blockade this pawn.
Exactly.
How do I get it to b6? I can't. d4 is just resigns. I can't go down 2 pawns.
No. D4 takes, knight D5. Yeah,
It's
the
2 pawns. It's
yeah.
just 2 pawns.
Exactly.
So how do I get it somewhere
This
useful?
is horrible.
This looks just terrible. Actually,
this is terrible.
I take it back. Bishop E2 is actually just a wonderful move
Wonderful move,
because of B5,
Yeah.
Some
B6.
great chess.
And again, you win your material back, but it's too late.
It's just too
Pawn
late.
it's just queening. I just wanted to complete one last thing. You get the overworked piece.
yeah.
That. I guess the computer wanted me to make a rook, and not a queen.
There was a rook b3 sighting in that one also.
They all win.
Probably.
I didn't want
It's
to
a
be sad.
piece.
You know, cute.
It's a
Rook-
piece.
Rook
It's a
b3
piece.
to allow
It's a
takes
piece.
on c7.
Yeah.
But yes, of course it was a piece.
Well, guys, I mean, I came in. Somebody was predicting 2 victories. Or
Looks like
3
Maybe that
victories. I
3.
mean, come on.
That's
I mean,
how it's
this
looking.
look. These are the elite of the elite. These guys don't lose. And look at the
It's not a
lifetime
surprise,
score.
though. Not a surprise.
Wow.
You're going to see a lot of these numbers and be shocked the more this tournament goes on. He has a plus score, I think, against 4 players in the field,
Including Fabi.
including Fabi, where he has a 5-0 score. Well, the last game was maybe 2012 or 2013. Nevertheless, Fabi was pretty good back then as well.
Yeah.
This young man, he can play.
Wow.
He can play. He can play, and you could have thought whatever you thought, but this tournament now is going to be a wild one as he is dropping a bomb. And we said Ding Liren was in last. Excuse me, Anish Giri is about to join him in last place as well. And you talked about it, Yasser, that they both, in their last candidates campaign, neither one of them lost a single game. That's combined 28 games, no losses, and in just 2 affairs for each.
2 rounds. There's
2
4
rounds
losses.
in, 4 losses.
No
That's
way.
insane. You never can predict. That's why you cannot predict anything in these events. And Wang Hao would be the sole leader after 2. Who would have said those words? You would have made some money in Vegas on that one.
Yeah, no, the standard deviation here feels like 6 or something off the chart. I mean, cosmic numbers.
The Canada is such a different tournament. The pressure that the players have is not like
Anything else?
Vaikenze or
Right.
Singfield. They're great tournaments.
Of course.
But if you do badly in the first couple rounds of a Singfield, you figure, okay, I'm tired. I've played a lot of tournaments. Maybe the next one will be my tournament. This one is the one that you've been preparing for so hard. Giri spent a month preparing for this.
It's a career-defining event.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Psychologically, each blow is so much tougher.
Yeah.
And you get 2 in a row. Oh my God.
By the way, you see that prize money, the
500,000 euros?
euros.
Nice.
That's not the prize money.
Yeah,
No,
it's just a
it's
thing.
That's not the
there's
prize
one.
money.
It's-
That 500,000 euros is what they're splitting for this event. The winner of this goes, forget that. I won the lottery.
Yeah.
Right. I am now going to play in the World Championship where the prize money there will be multiples.
2 million,
So
I think.
right
is
now
not-
I hear
Yeah.
right. That's what I know at the moment is 2 million. So that means if I lose the event, I should be walking away with what 800 grand. 800 is it dollars or even euros? But thereabouts.
Right.
So the winner is these players are not playing for that 500. They don't think about it. They know the first place. It wins the lottery,
Right.
And so, and by the way, they play this guy,
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
And if you beat him, which is a tall order by itself,
Right.
but if you beat him, you go down as a world champion in the history of our great game, and with an epic performance it's going to take to defeat such a champion as this one. As you can see, all his numbers are off the charts, and he's arguing that maybe he will one day be called the greatest player of all time. So you get that opportunity to play Magnus Carlsen for that much money on the world stage. Your stock goes way up. Fabi has established himself as a king. Well, maybe now a prince, a king in waiting, possibly because he played so tough against Magnus, and Magnus knows he would indeed be a stiff challenge as well. So we know what they're playing for. This possibility, the amazing chance to play against Magnus Carlsen and change their game. Also, they'll be stronger theoretically because they will have prepared for such a beast. So we know how much this is at stake. It's not just the 500K. And so one thing before I stop this, as I'm going crazy, make a point about this individual event. We had 5 of these to start the candidates process, starting with Budapest, 1950. They played 5 of those. They played Zurich in 1953, Amsterdam in 1956. They then played in Yugoslavia in 1959 and 1962 Curacao. It was one tournament, and that tournament decided who played the world champion.
Right.
Curacao tainted the waters a bit because there was some potential for collusion among the Russians. Fischer charged them with it. Korchlin charged them with collusion. So they changed it to match play. And that match play was different. You had to qualify to get into match play, right? So now it was top 8. Top 8 played matches against each other. Now, you jump to Montpellier in 1985 that you played in, Yasser.
Right.
That event was also a tournament, but it wasn't the pressure of those first 5 and these last 4. Now, this fifth one, it wasn't the same pressure because it wasn't just about first place, right? It was the 4 players played you played to get in the top 4 so that you can then play the matches, which Sokolov won, to then play Karpov, who was seeded into the finals of the match play. And then, Karpov beat him and played Kasparov. But there's a different kind of mentality you guys played in 85, right?
That's right.
Because it was top 4.
Right.
That's a different pressure than only one of us is going to make it.
Exactly. And this tournament is so tough. I mean, to win on demand is incredibly hard. To win an event like this, and just like you say, we're playing for first.
Right.
We're not playing for second. We don't want to play to look good. We have to play to become challenger. And so, Fabi today, he's playing the lowest rated player in the field. And he's really got to win. I mean, I really want to say that the pressure is there for him.
Every half point is so crucial. 14 rounds, yes, it's a lot of rounds. But you look at the rating difference, you look at the fact that you're white. Fabi said it himself. You need to create opportunities for yourself in this kind of tournaments. Right. He found one today. He wanted to sharpen the game. He caught his opponent in a line that probably he hadn't prepared well. It's not Fabi's main repertoire. He's not much of a D4 player.
Or F3
or much less an F3 Nimzo player.
Which is very difficult. And by the way, if you look at the 2 games, I mean, this is very, very early days, right? But if you look at the 2 games that Fabi played today, he's playing the most sharp lines, white or black. Yep. He is not backing down, and he's basically saying, I am the most well-prepared player in the tournament. Now, I don't know what is happening to Ding Liren. I'm sure everybody's being affected by circumstance.
Right.
But boy, Ding Liren, who had an unbelievable 2019, as did Magnus Carlsen. But, Ding Liren was just amazing.
It was a Magnus Carlsen show just until the second half where Ding Liren said, I'm around. I'm around.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly so. And,
Wow.
I mean, and we're looking at the last game to be played. Again, we've got 2 wins, 1 draw in the record book, because it looks like we're going to have a third win before we take a break.
No, well, Yasser, before that, let's just say that this game will take a while. Remember, this is very classical time control, and the players have reached move 40, which means each of them got an extra 50 minutes.
Yep.
So we encourage you to give us a call here at the studio.
Right.
Let's see. And I think we do have a caller.
Just before we took a break, we got a call. By the way, we've just seen the move Bishop E2, and Anish is now...
Rook B7.
Oh, he did?
He did play Rook B7.
I was about to say, Anish is really settling into the fact that, oh my word, it's really, really bad. And
B-pawn is a boss.
I'm not really sure how that helps you, right? B5 and kind of push.
Yeah,
and he can get the rook to B6.
Okay, so that's the plan. You stop it in a dark square, and for the moment, you're surviving.
You just hope that somehow this knight comes and rescues you somehow as well with knight F5 to D6. Just got word that we didn't get the call. It was
we will have some
false
calls.
alarm.
We'll have calls later. We'll take a short break, and we'll be right back with you guys. Don't go anywhere.
Can you hear it? It's the sound of hope and health and strength. It's the sound of compassion, of open doors, where people and machines are in tune and miracles occur. It's the sound of personalized healthcare and active communities. It sounds like life, and it's what you hear when you really listen.
Be surprised, be intrigued, be delighted. The World Chess Hall of Fame in St. Louis is nothing you'd expect and everything you love. 3 galleries highlight the history, culture, and creativity behind the game. Explore chess in ways you never imagined. It's a one-of-a-kind cultural institution where rare artifacts and world-class art play together. The World Chess Hall of Fame. Mind, art, experience.
St. Louis University is celebrating its 200th anniversary. Offering world-class education in the heart of St. Louis, SLU attracts students and professors from around the globe. In 2015, SLU partnered with the St. Louis Chess Club to start a top-tiered collegiate chess team. On the very first year of the team's inception, SLU obtained second best university at the Pan American Intercollegiate Chess Championships. Higher purpose, greater good. St. Louis University. we're back with round 2 of the 2020 candidates with already 2 decisive results out of 3 games. Magnus Carlsen and Maxime Vachier-Lagrave winning with the white pieces respectively against Kirill Alexenko and Ding Liren, who sits just at the bottom of the table, waiting to see if Anish Giri will also be there with a goose egg after 2 rounds, and he's suffering.
No question about it. We have a tie for first, 3 players at 1.5, but one player, Wang Hao, is eyeballing an opportunity to be the sole leader after 2 rounds as he's nursing a very nice extra pawn against Anish Giri. And you mentioned that
what a way to start.
Oof.
What a way to start. Defeating with the black pieces his countryman Ding Liren from the worst position.
Exactly, and he admitted it as much.
And just finding every resource in the situation. And now against Anish Giri, he got a nice, pleasant position from the opening. It just felt like he outplayed him, and Giri wanted to break out. He just didn't want to be corralled. He wanted to go out and find that counterplay. It backfired. It boomerang. And right now,
did it ever? I mean, this is like a dream position for White in terms of an isolated queen pawn. It's no longer an isolated queen pawn.
The story changed.
Yeah,
the story's about this B pawn.
Exactly, an extra pawn supported magnificently by this bishop on E2. Black is doing his very level best to keep a blockade. He's just played the move rook b6. Now, eventually, as white, you want to play moves like rook c7 and rook d7. I think you just start with a move like rook c5, just preparing this eventuality of making more and more progress.
This is because Nimzovich told you to overprotect your pawns?
Or to do things slowly, build things up. I like a patient way of going. The immediate rook c7.
I'm a direct kind of guy.
Yes,
so rook c7 is the first thing I think of, but I'm wondering, is knight f5 something that I'm thinking it's just too much? It's a little bit too much to allow.
Well, remember the previous lines where our B pawn was doing horrible things and just blowing the game open. In this case, because he hasn't even captured on e3 yet, he gets to corral the pawn.
You need that rook behind the pawn. It's a very important concept in any kind of endgame. Rooks behind the pawn. You allow that rook coming to c3, suddenly your pawn is difficult to defend. Because rook c7 doesn't work, because knight f5 and I'm running into trouble. This is where I play a lot of endgames, and I consider myself a pretty decent endgame player. Compared to other aspects of the game. And I'm looking at the move e4.
And I like it.
It's a strategically horrible move. You give up the e5 square, you weaken your pawn. But it has this specific point.
Which is to keep the
knight dead.
Exactly.
The knight can't move to f5. It can't move to d5. If it retreats, then I have rook c6 at all points.
Yeah. I agree. Normally speaking, the move e4, it's the type of move you do for a very, very specific purpose because you are taking a potential weakness, the isolated queen pawn, and you're kind of you're splitting your pawns. You're giving yourself the isolated pawn, but you're doing it because you're keeping this knight completely bottled up. I like e4. I just kind of like rook c5 a little bit better.
Difference of styles, but certainly E4, a great position for how we do have a phone call from California. Please give us your name and your question.
Yeah, my name is Carlos Salazar.
Carlos Salazar. I know. Hi, Carlos. Welcome to our show.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm a big chess fan, and I follow most of the big tournaments, and I'm usually, okay with seeing draws because I know that at this level it's really hard to get a win. But I'm surprised to see so many wins so far. Do you guys think that this has to do with the psychology of chess in this competition?
Well, first of all, Carlos, thank you for the question because, yes, we are seeing what I would call an extremely high level of decisive games very early in the tournament. I think things kind of get settled down. I mean, normally speaking, this type of a tournament, it's such a high level. People are coming, full of energy, vim, and vigor. They really, really want to show their very best at the start, and there's nerves and butterflies and what have you. This number of decisive games is psychological. Because if you compare it to any kind of an elite tournament that you see on the Grand Chess Tour, you don't have so many. I mean, what's the Sinquefield Cup? Maybe 25% over the course of
Sinquefield Cup.
over the course of 6 years or whatever it's been. But wow, right now, many decisive games after 2 rounds.
Well, there is one mitigating factor for sure. The fact that there is a sub 2,700 player, or just on the cusp of 2,700 player in the tournament, reminds you of other elite tournaments of that nature. Most notably, Tata Steel.
Right.
This is not a Sinquefield Cup. The Sinquefield Cup will feature top 8 players, top 10 players in the world, and you'll see tons of draws. This one has a bit of a spread. In the Sinquefield Cup, you don't see 150 rating point spread between first and last, and that usually brings out the beasts. That by itself usually gets people a little antsy, thinking, that guy I've got to beat. And their attitude is always, one game should be decisive. I don't want to be the guy who only draws him. I want to be the guy who beats him. So Alexenko does shift the border a little bit, to be sure, and maybe significantly so. But also, we should add, you're right about the psychology, Ding Liren doesn't lose 2 games in a row. He went off 100 games
with no
losses,
Right.
Much less to go back to back with losses. This just doesn't happen to this guy. So there's something wrong going on with Ding Liren at the moment. We heard some reasons from Fabi and Wanghaus when he was interviewed yesterday. Also seemed to put a possible excuse for his countrymen in it being a trying time in general. So we're seeing something early happen. I think it's very easy to imagine that this settles down, and we begin to see more normalcy with draws, not 2 wins every day, or maybe even 3 wins every day.
Right. It is just very, very unusual. And again, I think it's like butterflies. Maurice, you were talking some history about these candidate tournaments, and +3 before the event. If somebody had said to you, "What's going to tie for first?" You're saying +3.
+3, automatic.
+3.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you're saying that because of Kirill's presence, that might
move up
require a little bit more?
It might move up just a bit.
Like 3.2 or something like that?
More than that, I think. More than that. Fabi won with +4 when he won. And again, +3 usually wins this tournament.
And +3 would have won it last time in Berlin.
Won when he won, because the closest person was at +2. But the reality is, if somebody like Fabi says, listen, I'm going to take this point right here. This is a point. Usually Fabi couldn't count on points. Think about that. You can't look at anybody in a normal candidate field and say, he's a point. Well, okay, he might be a point. Oh, no. You got 8 gangsters, right? You got criminals, assassins everywhere. Every one of them, you think, if I play this guy 5 games and the score is 2.5, that's okay. That's a good result.
Yeah, and everybody's like that, and suddenly, where's the +3 coming from?
Where's it coming from? So you're looking around, like, where am I getting points from? So +3 is a majestic result. It's a real awesome result. You're going to gain rating points. Maybe Magnus might not gain. Even Magnus gains at +3. Yeah. So when you put somebody in the field where everybody goes, no, this guy, if I play him 5 games, I'm doing better than 50%.
Right.
And that's Kirill. And so now that shifts it a bit, because anybody who beats him says, I told you, I got him. You better beat him because I got him. And that's my point. And now I'm going to look for the rest of the points through you guys. And I think that's what's going to change the dynamic here, is having a player who just simply makes it weird. I mean, he is literally separated from Anish by 60 rating points. This is after round. This is live ratings update.
Right.
He was even more than this.
Wow.
Right before the round.
Yeah.
So you imagine somebody who's 50, 60, 70 rating points away.
He's actually 44 now.
20 as Fabi. Fabi's jumped 3 rating
points. Right. Fabi has jumped.
Right.
So this is not totally live. This was after round 1, I believe.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, he's coming into today.
Coming into today, and that's after Kirill gained a rating point, and Anish has dropped because of his loss.
Right.
So the separation was broader than this coming in. That bottom of it just affects you psychologically. That's why a lot of people say they like to see a random wild card. Even if that person's the victim, just throw him in there. We need some fresh meat for the rest of the players to think we're going to beat up on him, because it just gives more flavor to the tournament. Not fair to your 2690s and this 2700. It's like, really? I got to be the one? But that's the reality. These guys at the top are pure sharks, like natural-born killers. And you give them somebody that could be a victim, they're going to go after him.
Yeah,
Alejandro.
Just a small detail there. Dingler didn't lose that much rating on his. He was 27.99 coming into today's round. He's dropped to 27.94 or 93.9.
But he was 28.04.
But he's dropped precipitously. He's lost 11 points already in this tournament.
You can count on every loss is going to be 5, but in his case, a little bit more than 5.
A little bit more, because he's
2,800,
so much higher.
Right.
And Wang Hao has gained so much that if he wins today, he's going to be number 8 in the world. But not only that, not only is he going to be number 8, he's going to be this much from numbers 7 and 6.
There's a herd there.
Because right there is Aronian, who's maybe will be 0.6 ahead of him. Another victory will put him at number 5 on the planet.
Wow.
Right behind
an
Nepo.
all-time personal
Think about
best.
that. Number 5 on the planet.
Another victory actually puts him above Nepo.
If Nepo doesn't keep the pace. Number 4 in the world. By the way, and if he wins and Dingler keeps losing, we could see Wang Hao as number 3 in the world. That would be insane. I mean, it's like, wow. Who could have imagined that?
That is quite a bit of a difference between Dingler and a Nepo. There are 20 points there.
But thank you to Carlos for the question about the wins. And right now.
It's a good question. It's a strange situation.
Very, very strange. Psychologically, what's going on in the tournament.
I think we're going to see more draws, though. We're going to have to see like 4 rounds of draws, like 4 players draw.
We'll see. Yeah,
we should see that.
Talk about an explosive start, though.
We kind of brush it, but it is a big deal. The players are not comfortable. They're just not comfortable. No. This is not the tournament where you go in, you've prepared, your seconds are there, everything's going smoothly, you're there to play the best chess you can. The truth is, the players came into Russia with difficulties. They didn't know what their flights were sometimes. Some flights were canceled. They didn't know if they had to begin to quarantine. They learned and spent 2 weeks in the outskirts of Moscow in quarantine. You don't want to be in quarantine. You want to go out, get some fresh air, go to a restaurant.
Nice walk on the boulevard.
None of that. Wang Hao is not even with his seconds there. He wasn't able to go to... I mean, all kinds of things are surrounding the tournament, and they make it weird.
Exactly.
When weirdness happens
happens on the chessboard as well. Yeah, it is a very unusual set of circumstances. But let's take a phone call.
We have a phone call from Maryland. Again, please tell us your name and your question.
Hi, my name is Amir, and I'm calling from Maryland. Great show, great commentary. I really enjoy watching you guys. My question is, I think it was back in the 1970s during the matches of Karpov and Kasparov that a model like of drawing with when you are black, you strive for a draw, but when you are white, you strive for a win. And it seems to me that it's like lacking ambition with black. I just wanted to know. Why did they start that model?
Well, first of all, Amir, thank you very much for the question. Of course, if you go back into the 1800s, the Romantic era of chess, black, white, no, decisive games just kept going. I mean, it was the advance of the opening theory, where white was given an edge, and you said white has the first move, and he gets a chance to create an initiative and gain the advantage. I remember my very first Olympiad in Malta in 1980, and our dear friend Pal Benko recently passed away, was our team captain, and Pal Benko's formula for success was very simple: draw with black, win with white. And it wasn't really win with white, it was like pressure your opponent. Make them on the defensive. And that was 1980, and from that point period forwards, I was watching these World Championship matches and Kasparov-Karpov and Karpov-Korchnoi matches and then Kramnik. It was always the same. People were trying to break down the opponent when they were white and just hold the position from the black. So, I mean, it's it's decades. That's the way it's been in the world of chess. And in today's world of chess, when Fabiano sits down with the black pieces like he did yesterday, he's not just comfortably sitting back saying, oh, I should draw today.
Well, the ideal for every chess player is to get a position in which you have chances,
right?
But you're not excessively risking. And when you are on the second side with black, it's very difficult to find those positions. There are only a certain limited amount of openings and positions that you can get where you get a playable position,
right?
But the level of risk is acceptable.
Right.
Most of the time with white, if you have a little bit of a risk, that extra move gives you the edge to risk and not be completely out of your mind with that risk. With black, a lot of the times when you risk, it's just really, really going for it. For example, something like the King's Indian.
Yeah.
Very ambitious.
Right.
But as soon as you play the King's Indian, oh man, there's no turning back. Right. That's it. You are risking so much.
Right.
And in these kind of matches, in this kind of tournaments, the unnecessary risk can be punished very severely.
Exactly.
I mean, you look at the record of a lot of these risky openings, they don't have a great record, not at the top.
Right. King's Indian, Benoni's coming to that. One of the openings that seems double-edged but worth the risk is the Sicilian.
The Sicilian has held up for years because of that. Both the Najdorf and the Sveshnikov have been used to tremendous effect recently and throughout history because it provides black not only with a playable and good position, but unbalanced.
Right, chances as well. Jump in here, Maurice.
Well, let me say, to me, there are two things that had a seismic effect on the attitude of the black pieces nowadays. Before, Yasser, if we go back in the day, having black was just like, oh my God, what is the guy going to play? This is going to be tough. Right. Should I just try to play solid like a Carol Khan like yourself? If I want to play something sharp, white's thinking, I'm hacking away. I got white. I'm supposed to hack away.
Right.
But what happened, first of all, there was a guy named Kramnik who looked at Kasparov and said, I know you're a killer, but I'm going to put a defense up against you, and you're going to buck your head into this defense, and you're not going to solve it. And that was the Berlin.
Right.
And suddenly players had a refuge. They could go somewhere to hide, and everything was okay-ish, basically. Very hard to beat, and we saw just draw upon draw upon draw. So now black felt a bit safer. But then the next thing that happened that was critical, huge, and this happened simultaneously, was the advent of the engines. And the engines, these days, you got black, you say, oh, I can pretty much equalize. I can get playable positions. It used to be that white would sack a pawn for the initiative, like back in Kasparov's day. No problem, go for it. Nowadays, you're not giving up that pawn. Like, no, I'm not just giving up a pawn for the initiative because people can defend so well now, again, because of engines, practicing with them. And also they know black is okay. There's some line that says black is okay no matter how sharp your line looked. So now white is actually on the back foot, not like it used to be where you're like, I'm hacking away. Now you're looking for stuff to do. And even Wesley once said that when he made this draw. Who did he make a draw against?
Against Fabi.
It was Fabi. And he's like, and he said, well, why did you play into this? And he says, you tell me what to do.
Yeah, it was a
what should I do? Right?
He couldn't break down the guy's Petrov.
Like, show me a way to play against this, and I'll do that.
We did do a good job,
right?
I would say.
You know, so these days, because black is okay, black feels a lot more comfortable because they can prep with the engine and say, I'm going to be fine. I don't have to play risky. I can just be okay. And in the meantime, with white, I'm going to struggle just to find some kind of creative way to play. And they're happy when they see an active position. You heard Fabi say it himself. Man, I was happy today. It was some life in this position. Sharp, I could play this position. And let's hope the guy makes a mistake. And even though he didn't know it, by the way, even though he wasn't well prepared, he got the kind of position he wanted, and there was his victory.
I have the experience of being a very hacky player when it comes to opening repertoire. I grew up in the open system.
Okay.
And in the open system of chess, you have to win. Black, white.
The Swiss tournaments. You got to score 90% to get a prize.
I remember I won a tournament with tons of grandmasters, the US Open, and I won it giving up 2 draws.
Right.
Yeah, like that's how you win it. And the guy below me had only gave up 3 draws.
Right.
So, I mean,
you have to
had
win a lot of games.
A lot of games. So my opening repertoire is full of like Alekhines and weird Sicilians. Benko Gambits, which are just...
yeah.
I mean, when you analyze this seriously, like you actually make a serious analysis on this, and for example, it was a problem for me coming into the U.S. Championship.
Right.
When I played Hikaru Nakamura, even
Alexander Onishuk of the world.
You know,
I mean, they were really solid guys.
Really solid. And you play this kind of hacky stuff, they'll just grab you and torture you.
Yeah,
they know it in and out, and they know where the weaknesses of these openings are.
Yeah.
And suddenly, when I started really working on some openings, especially when I started working with Fabi, I looked at some openings with black, and it's like, oh, why not just not be worse from the opening every time, right?
Right.
So why not be equal? It just seems so much better. And that's kind of what happens in the world of chess right now. Black decides, why should I be worse? Let's just be equal, instead of, you know, having a terrible position from the opening,
but again,
without risk.
You were warped by your experience, whereas a open Swiss player, where you have to win black, white, green pieces, doesn't matter, you got to win, you're taking a lot of risks.
A lot of risk. And that was, you know, it kind of where you grow up from. Like, I didn't have the proper, let's say, chess training.
The classical chess training.
You know, I was never told, look, you have to learn E4, E5 as black, because you will at some point play it in your life.
And that was kind of like the Soviet style of chess. When I went in the 1980s to Europe, and again, like yourself, I was warped with this open style of play where I was taking excessive risks, perk defense, rat defenses, whatever you want to call them. And I saw the Zoltan Ribleys of the world keeping knight f3, g3, bishop g3, Catalans, and just playing +1 for the whole tournament. I was like, +1?
What's +1?
What the heck is +1? I mean, I just played in the New York Open where +5 didn't do it. You know?
That's right. You could be a boss in those tournaments, not make any money. And by the way, Yaz, I knew you grew up in the U.S., in a great Northwest. Seattle, having a tough time right now. Our best to those great folks in Seattle. And I know, you know, you played a lot of blitz and all that, but I grew up in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
You +1. Fianchetto variation. What? No. Hack away, baby. You gotta die.
Exactly.
And you play sharp with both colors. You play wild. And when I went to Europe for the first time, that's exactly what happened. Guys were playing these ultra solid positions and like, what's going on? What's this? And man, I took that first trip, I took it on the chin because I wanted to keep it wild and busy. And these guys were used to, no. We keep it classical and shut that thing down. And you know, there's only so much risk you can do in order to get rewarded, and the risk-reward formula was not working when you play these sharp, hacky openings.
Okay,
wow,
we do have one more phone call, but I did want to get into the game a little bit. But first, let's take the phone call, Alejandro, as we get back to
young caller from Ohio, which I've heard is stuck doing homework.
Okay, hello, welcome to our show. Your name and question, please.
Hi, my name is Connor. I'm from Canton, Ohio. And my question is, while I was watching your show today, I was doing some AP United States history homework. And while reading, it talked about the Spanish flu that occurred 100 years ago and talked about how it devastated the economy. So from a chess perspective, how do you guys think, the current pandemic going on, how do you think it's going to, change our views towards the future of chess? And when we look back on, this time now in the future, what do you think is going to happen? What are the what-ifs that are going to, spring up as a result of this?
Oh, that's a great question.
Thank you for the question. I'll just take a quick crack at it because I know that you will want to jump in here, Alejandro. First of all, let's boldly state the obvious. You've just been invited to the U.S. Championship, which has been postponed, and tournaments across the world, not just the U.S. Championships, but the Grenke tournament, the Icelandic Open, which is a great tournament. Everybody looks forward to. So many tournaments being canceled. It's just it's having an enormous ripple impact.
Yeah, this question, let's be clear, is very narrowly about chess.
Yes.
Yeah, what happens in the chess world? This will have huge impacts in many other cases, but specifically about the chess world, it's always very harmful to us because we're kind of the first things to go. We rely on sponsors, and when the economy goes down, sponsorship goes way down, and tournaments just get canceled.
Right.
Even tournaments with great tradition, like Linares. I mean,
For example,
Tata
Steel is a little wobbly.
Because they rely on profits. If profits are not there, there's no money for sponsorship.
Exactly.
We rely on a lot of them. It doesn't really affect us that much that we have a lot of things postponed. Okay, Reykjavik doesn't get done this year, they can skip a year. It won't change the chess world. It's a pity. Yeah, a lot of chess players,
would like to play.
Would like to play it, but we have some problems there. But the sponsorship for a lot of events might just evaporate. On the other hand, what are chess players doing?
They're online.
A lot of them are online. A lot of them had already moved, already had moved to online teaching.
Right.
But those that rely on Bundesligas to make a living, or the European leagues, and a lot of players are like that. They rely on playing chess for a living. They rely on traveling. They live basically paycheck to paycheck, playing leagues, tournament to tournament, and those leagues just don't exist.
Yeah.
Bundesliga's been canceled. The 4NCL, the one in England, has been canceled. All of them have been either canceled or postponed.
Right.
So right now, for a lot of chess professionals, there is no job.
Right. And the Professional Chess League Online, sponsored by Chess.com, they have the Final Four in Norway, and everybody was looking forward to quite a party in Norway.
I have my ticket booked.
I know, it's terrible. Jump in here, Maurice.
Let's take a historical perspective. The young man's question is a great one. I'm a student. I consider myself a student of history. And yes, indeed, this is going to affect chess. But let's go broader than just this one event or even the Spanish flu. Think about the world wars. When the world wars took place, it took 4 years. Chess events were canceled all around the world. The World War I, World War II. Paul Keres, known as the Eternal Second, he won Avro in 1938. That qualified him to play against one Alexander Yekin. He has a chance to become the world champion.
Right.
And boom, a cancellation as all heck broke loose in Europe, and that he never got that chance. Yeah. Alexander Yekin dies during the war, and then they had to play this tournament, the match tournament, in Moscow, I believe it was, with Botvinnik. Keres got to play there as well. But that was already 10 years later.
Right.
And he could have been at the peak of his powers. Okay, he was still very strong when they played the match tournament after the war, but he ended up coming in second in that one. Then he played in Budapest. Didn't come in, he came in outside of the top two. And then he came in second 4 events in a row, tie for second or second in the next 4 candidates. Never got his shot. So imagine that. You're a player, you're at the potential peak of your powers, and now you have to stop with some big event. So the World Wars, we did see this example. Chess events stopped all over the world as well. What happened, though, after that? Chess recovered. Chess remains an eternal light in our world. It's part of world culture, 1,500 years of it. It continues to draw new young fans, as yourself caller. It will survive beyond this. We all will make it after this, and chess will make it after this as well. It's just going to take some time as the world shakes out a particular issue, as the world does. Problems happen. Problems arise, even big ones like this one the world has seen before, and we all have to just be strong and deal with it, and don't worry, the game will be back.
Yeah. Thank you, Maurice, for that. Let's jump into the chess game.
Speaking of problems.
Speaking of problems, Anish is still struggling. Okay, we left it here, and we had seen the move b5, rook to b6, and we talked about this move a little bit, trying to blockade on the dark squares, dealing with this problem runaway pawn before it really becomes a criminal.
And once it reaches b6, and we don't take it immediately, it's just unstoppable.
Exactly, exactly. So rook b6, and this was a little bit of a crafty move. Rook d1.
Exhibiting great patience.
Yeah, keeping the knight anchored. I guess I want to put it like that way. King f6, like, okay, bring your king to e6. It will be safe in the center of the board, and it will defend the pawn on d5 and release the knight. Rook d2. Okay, I see that. I do too. I like that move a lot. I like strategic concepts as simple as the following. I really do this. I do this very consciously. What is my opponent's best guy?
Yeah.
You know, what's his all-star? Oh, I get it. This rook on a3 is the all-star for my opponent. Well, what I've got to do is I've got to get rid of that all-star. And I see this move, and I sit there saying to myself, oh, this move sets up for rook a2, and on a good day, the rook can come to a6 and hit the blockader on a b6. So I see that move as a nice move. And then bishop d3. That's a little bit of a surprise. Is he setting up for e4?
I think he's setting up for e4. I also think when I see a lot of these positions, it just keeps your options open. Rook a2 probably was his idea, but it's something that you probably don't have to play now. So you give yourself that space to do it when you need it. And this is I think grandmasters do all the time. They put their pieces where the threat they might execute doesn't work right now, but maybe down the line, it might, because situation has changed, it helps you. And I think that rook d2 is just such a useful move in that scenario, because rook a2 is something that you might always think about from now on in the future. And I like the fact that he takes his time, plays bishop d3. He could even have thought of bishop d3, then king e2, then rook a2. Something very slow, because he also sees black's position, and he thinks, how is Giri going to improve? And you're kind of running out of ideas here, right? The knight on e7 doesn't have anywhere to go. The king, if it comes into the center, I'm going to hit it with e4, and suddenly it's going to have a barrage of checks. So he's taking it slow, he's taking his strides. He's finally broken with e4. So finally he plays the move e4.
So you see the move rook d2, bishop d3 is this kind of flexible keeping all your options open. You haven't committed yourself to anything. And by the way, once black has put his knight, I don't know, on the b6 square.
Or right now, like on c8. The knight on the edge, I break in the center.
Exactly. Now that now that you've passively place your knight. Now let's talk about e4. You are getting rid of a potential weakness, right? I mean, let's say takes.
And this has happened, takes and rook b6. This is the current position.
Okay. And from black's point of view, black's thinking, okay, well, I mean, I'm doing my best to hang on. I do have a blockade, and I just got rid of a potential weakness, d5.
Yes.
Give me, like black is dreaming, I don't know. Give me a chance to play knight d6, and maybe I can keep it up. How should white, in your view, continue?
Well, there's a couple of moves that kind of jump at me. I look at the king on f6. I think it's a bit of a weakness. I'm trying to figure out if there's a tactical way to exploit it.
Like if you could play rook c6 check
rook
and
c6
force.
check. Also looking at like rook b4, rook f4 in some variations.
Okay, so
I'm looking at all these kind of ideas. I'm trying to improve my rooks.
Okay.
The first move that I think of is rook bc2. Does that move win?
Rook bc2, does that move win?
Yeah. Then I have to analyze knight a7. Does this actually work for me? And
because you're looking at rook c6.
I'm looking at rook c6. Does this work? So I spend a little bit of time calculating this move.
Right.
Because if rook c6 works, well, that's the end of the game.
Exactly.
So all these kind of things I start to look at. The other thing I would look at is to just restrain my opponent. I know that his idea is going to be either knight a7 or knight d6. I try to find something against them. I'm not really sure what to do right now because bishop c6, which is another kind of...
Which, by the way, you talk about the king on f6 as being a problem piece, maybe a tactical target. On a good day, you get to play rook to d7.
That's what I was talking about, right?
So the bishop c6 kind of puts the rook on b6.
Yeah.
Kind of a little cage. There. So you see bishop c6, you see rook c2 as options. You were talking about activating the rooks. Rook d7 come into your mind?
Yeah, rook d7 definitely comes into my mind because the knight on a7 would feel a little bit uncomfortable. I still think that a move like rook d7 I would have to calculate because, for example, king e6, and I have to find an actual position for this rook.
Oh, but then it really works nicely if the guy walks into, because then you were mentioning the king could become a tactical target. Rook e2. And, looky, real nice open highways for white's rooks.
The only issue I see for Wang Hao is that every move is tempting.
That's the problem.
That's the problem.
Sometimes you just want one clear path.
A clarity. And here I don't see a clear path. I just figure I should keep improving.
Right.
And I don't see a way to rip the blockade anytime soon. I'm just going to improve until black can't hold.
Yeah, you break them. Maurice, jump in here with a chess engine's thought on how you do it.
By the way, the chess engine is giving nothing to crack the position.
Okay.
Several moves. It looks like this position stays pretty stable for a while. It's giving white a huge edge, almost a two-pawn edge, but not finding a sequence that said, this is how we crack it, and even a sequence that says, this is how you improve it to a point where you say, okay, now it's going to be falling apart pretty soon.
Right.
And that, to me, what that says is it's an interesting situation. The one advantage white does have is this pawn sitting on b5. He'd hope to get a secondary advantage, like you guys are bringing a rook to d7, a bishop on d5, making f7 work as another advantage as well. But it's very hard because you can't lift the dark square blockade. My feeling is, in this kind of position, the trick for white is to make sure to put enough pressure so that the other guy screws up. And I know you don't want to necessarily rely on the screw up, but a lot of chess is patience, 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 and more patience, more pressure. I'm the one who's better. You're the one who's defending. You're going to have to defend forever,
Right.
ever. And by the way, who played a long game yesterday, suffered for a long time, and ended up losing the game in the end when he thought maybe he could have made a draw?
Yeah.
Anish Giri, and that's a part of it. If you are his opponent, you're like, I know you're tired from yesterday, right? It was a really bad result. You probably went home. You thought, let me come back and fight and maybe make a draw and be okay. No, I'm going to make you suffer the same way. You're worse. You have to defend. You might be equal. There might be miracle drawing variations that you think are going to happen, but I'm going to make you suffer and suffer and suffer. And that's what professional players do. And I think that's what Anish is in for.
And we do have a move, by the way. Rook d7
as you were
was chosen.
saying.
No, well, you were saying that you were looking to activate your rooks, and you were looking at a rook c2 to c6 with a check. And I like this move, too, from the point of view I've got bishop d5. It all comes to the calculation of rook a7. Sorry.
Another big plus for Wang Hao is that the further trades we have, the easier his conversion. It doesn't matter what you trade at this point.
Right.
I mean, if it's the bishop for the knight and you've already traded a couple of rooks and your rook on b2 stays alive,
Well, then you just walk your king to the king. Right.
Bishop against knight, trivial.
Right.
Trivial conversion. These pawns on h5, g6, and f7 are such easy targets. The knight can't possibly hold the pawn on b5 and defend the king side.
What Alejandro means right there, by the way, everybody, is that because white has a light square bishop and all of black's pawns on the king side, they become constant targets for the end of the game.
Right.
But let's not overstate that, guys.
Yes, please.
For example,
Rook d7.
What do you do about rook c3?
Rook
do you do about this
c3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'll
bite.
Yeah.
Bishop
d5.
D5. Okay. And now knight d6.
I'll continue bishop. I can't play bishop c6, sorry. There's a tactical.
Right. Rook c6, so you can't
So
take
rook a2?
No, I only played biship d5 because against knight d6 I thought bishop c6.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay,
So,
yeah. Let's go back.
No. Rook a2.
Okay. So now, rook a2.
No, but
If
rook
you
a2
take
blunders.
on- Whoa,
Rook c5
we're gonna
blunder.
take
Yeah,
rook
rook c5 attacks the...
Rook a6.
Rook takes b5 with the scene. And
Oh,
takes
rook-
and king e5.
Sorry.
No, but this is, I can trade and take this and then come back and...
Yeah, it's just a draw. Because I can take on a6, take on a6, takes on d5.
King e7, sorry.
King E7.
Okay, nice. Okay, rook takes d5. I wanted
just show that,
a7. Rook a5, rook takes
just showing
d6.
the line, sorry,
But
just
king
showing the line.
e7, and I can't defend the a pawn. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
So
Okay.
let's not allow the knight on d6 with the tempo. I only played this because I thought bishop c6 was on tap, but apparently it isn't.
By the way,
So can I play rook
just-
b7?
I'm going to go into the line. I just want to show
Please.
one thing, because you guys were talking about the strength of the light squares, right?
Right.
Yeah. White has that. And bishops are incredibly powerful pieces, but the main weakness of the bishop is it's a 32 square piece.
Right.
It can't control the opposite color. I'm not talking to you guys now. I'm
Yeah.
talking to the guys out in in TV land. Now, the point is your bishop is much more flexible than the knight, much more. Faster, maybe flexibility is not the word, speedier, right? It can just jet up and down the board, but it's stuck on one color. And when that happens, the enemy forces can often lift themselves off that color complex. As you see here, it's not a mystery or magic why all of black's pieces gravitated to dark squares and created some impotence for this bishop. And this knight on a dark square attacks a light square, so this became a bit trickier for white to convert. And that was the difficulty here. Although it looked optically really good, suddenly it changes and you go, wait a minute,
It's not so easy.
I can't do it so easily. So that's the challenge you face as you try to break down. That's the challenge he's facing as he tries to break down this position. So now, rook c3,
So-
back to here.
Let's trade. I'm kind of wondering.
b7.
Rook b7. Let's get rid of some pieces.
Now that lifts the blockade for sure, so that's Good point.
I think you want to go to b6. I don't really know how you're planning on stopping my pawn if I just move to either d5 or even e4. E4 looks completely winning.
E4 here.
Just
Yeah, you
drop
can't
back.
possibly take on e4.
Yeah, no, that
that's
looks beastly. We like that.
Losing ending.
We like that.
Rook ending, I mean. So.
Right.
So rook b7, but it seems to be
You
no
could
choice.
trade
So this
and
is
put
the only
the knight
move.
on b6.
This is the only move. And,
Right.
And here's another position I'll slowly improve. I don't know, I'll bring my king, or I'll play rook d2, something like that. King e2 seems like a move.
Well, okay, so you want to do this.
Right.
All right, so he's going to bring his king over.
And then I'll play something like king d2. I'm not afraid of knight c4. Why am I afraid of knight c4? What did I move? Rook c7, rook c7. Sorry, it attacks the bishop. Yes.
Double attack, yeah.
So I have to be a little bit careful. I probably have to bring my bishop back.
First.
Bishop e4, something like this.
Yeah, so now your bishop is nice and tight.
Nice and tight.
Right.
Then I'll play king d2. I'll play rook c2. Again, I'm not really afraid of exchanging
rooks off, because you'll keep this pawn.
I'll keep the pawn always.
Again, the knight on b6 is a great blockader, but it's also offside.
Offside, yeah.
And then you've got to start to turn your attention to the king side, and maybe that f7 pawn you start to
This
gang
f7
up.
pawn will try to get off, but it's the h5 pawn that's the main
Yeah.
problem, right?
You're never
can get this one
liquidating
move,
the
this one
h5.
move, but that h5 pawn could be a long-term
Yeah,
problem.
the one and only thing I have to worry about is that if you do take f and g, that's going to be a draw. I have to at least keep one because this is the wrong bishop.
This against this,
Right.
if you can get rid of this one.
Yeah, if I can get rid of
If
that
you can
one.
get rid of it. It's a lot to get rid of.
It's a lot to get rid of.
This, and give up your piece, and trade off rooks, and be left with a bishop and pawn with the wrong color. I think that's too much for him to ask. But maybe that's the key. Maybe the core point is trading off a pair of rooks, particularly the blockading rook, and then trying, still a squeeze. It's still a ways to go, but it's looking like some progress. And I think when he played this move, rook d7, I think that's his main point. His main point is to play rook b7 as a big threat. Because now if that's the case, that means if knight d6 is then, can he play like this, and if bishop c6, rook c3
Well, the knight's
instead,
hanging.
but suddenly the knight is hanging.
Yeah.
So that is the problem.
Right.
He can't get that in time. So that's why you have to play this rook move first, trying to time it out. So rook b7, that sounds like the instructive idea that makes black's position much worse.
Which is kind of funny. When the rooks were doubled on the second rank and there was a bishop on d3, I was thinking of trading a rook.
Right.
But I wanted to trade the rook on a3, not the rook on b6. I was thinking like, oh no, the rook on b6 is a nice blockader. But
I think if you have the opportunity, you do trade that rook on a3, but it's just so active that it's difficult to catch it.
Like if we just go back to the position where he played the move e4.
We can go see it, yeah.
Yeah, so this is where e4, and this is where I thought the move rook d2, and I like the idea of king e2, which you had mentioned as well, Alejandro.
I like the patience of king e2. King e2, rook c2. I'm going to be threatening at some point rook a2, and I agree with you that it looks more logical to trade that guy than the one on b6.
Right.
Yeah.
So, well, just a different approach. But one of the things that you had said, Alejandro, that really echoed, it's sort of like any kind of endgame, a rook and pawn endgame, a bishop versus knight endgame, a rook and bishop versus knight, where you're keeping the b5 pawn, of course, makes it really easy, and you're just looking for a path that makes it easy. And this rook d7 to b7,
Rook c3 played. Rook c3 played.
3 on the board.
There wasn't too many choices actually for Anish, and rook c3 looks like a very logical move. And now we're more or less settled that bishop d5, knight d6, rook. I mean, it felt like I didn't really want to give up on this line because it almost looks like there's got to be something that works for white.
Well, look at those dark squares.
I know. It looks like checkers, right? for black at least. But this move, rook b7, looks to be the money move, Maurice. Just eliminate that guy and play rook and bishop versus rook and knight with the extra pawn.
The more you trade, the better for you. Extra pawn, in this case, it looks like well positionally founded to play such a move. And it's going to be difficult, a very difficult defense because you're stuck. Basically, you'll be functioning a piece down if white ever coordinates. Right. Because you're blockading, you say, I got the blockade. But again, it's that other side of the board. So if we see this happen, this position, we're trading here, right, and playing this move. If you have to play this move, the knight looks really cool in that square.
It does.
I'm blockading this pawn. You can never really, it doesn't look like you can easily eject me. But White's going to start thinking about the other side, and White's going to play this slowly, as we said. And sooner or later, it's this knight. You're always, as black, you're always looking over at the knight because you know White has some scheme to bring the rook over and down. You know that's always there that White is looking for. And White will cement the advantage of this pawn on that square, that extra pawn, and your knight will just be stuck. So then, I mean, even I see freewheeling, move the bishop, get the rook around somehow, and just start torturing the guy. And that's going to be a continuous theme. Sooner or later, there's also going to be this problem, sooner or later. And sooner or later, there's also going to be this problem. Because if you trade, pawn takes, like this kind of trade later is going to be suggesting this, which is going to freeze this king. So they're going to be, the board's going to get wider, which knights hate. This knight all the way over here can't help out. The board's going to get wider and wider, and sooner or later it's going to be back to this pawn again. So there's so many issues to deal with that, yeah, something's going to land, and we got the time issue as well. So I think Geary is hoping that Wang Hao gets himself into time pressure and blunders, makes an error as he defends tenaciously because he knows this position should be lost.
Right. Well, thank you for that, Maurice. As we take another short break, I just wanted to give a shout out to our colleagues, Hu Yifan and Peng Zhaojing. Are doing Chinese broadcast.
By this much.
Peng? Miss Peng, I call her. Are doing Chinese broadcasts, and they had a million people watching, and I just think that is just so cool.
Well, if you speak Mandarin, former world champion, join them. For now, let's take a small break. We'll be right back as we see if, speaking of Chinese players, can Wang Hao convert and become the sole leader of the tournament? Don't go anywhere. This is still ongoing.
Absolutely.
Can you hear it? It's the sound of hope and health and strength. It's the sound of compassion, of open doors, where people and machines are in tune and miracles occur. It's the sound of personalized healthcare and active communities. It sounds like life, and it's what you hear when you really listen.
Be surprised. Be intrigued. Be delighted. The World Chess Hall of Fame in St. Louis is nothing you'd expect and everything you love. 3 galleries highlight the history, culture, and creativity behind the game. Explore chess in ways you never imagined. It's a one-of-a-kind cultural institution where rare artifacts and world-class art play together. The World Chess Hall of Fame. Mind, art, experience.
St. Louis University is celebrating its 200th anniversary. Offering world-class education in the heart of St. Louis, SLU attracts students and professors from around the globe. In 2015, SLU partnered with the St. Louis Chess Club to start a top-tiered collegiate chess team. On the very first year of the team's inception, SLU obtained second-best university at the Pan American Intercollegiate Chess Championships. Higher purpose, greater good. St. Louis University. And we are back. We do have two results that were decisive today, as we saw the game of Fabiano Caruana crushing Kirill Alexenko, but even worse was the smackdown that MVL gave Ding Liren, clearly not in form here in the candidates to start off his tournament. Meanwhile, the Russian derby between Alexander Grischuk with the black pieces, well, he held pretty comfortably in the black side of a Berlin against Jan Nepomniachtchi, a game that was a little bit strange, but we can't really say that either side had a great advantage at any point.
Exactly. Two decisive games out of the three. One game pending. Wang Hao, we see that three players are tied for first at the moment, but Wang Hao is hoping to leapfrog all of them if he can win and convert the extra pawn.
Yeah, but before that, we do have a shout out, as we do have a birthday in the building.
All right.
It's the one and only Ben Simon.
Big Ben.
And you guys might not be familiar with Ben Simon, but here at the Chess Club, we know him, we love him dearly. He's been around forever, since before the Chess Club started.
And Ben was the first guy who was recording my chess classes. Whenever I did a lecture, I was the Grandmaster in Resident here at the club. He set up the whole situation, and I think he's uploaded over 1,000 videos, lectures that have been here at the club.
So if you've enjoyed our videos, any of the opening tricks, opening traps,
the guy, why?
That's the guy. That's the guy that makes it happen. So shout out to Ben. He's turning 16, I've been told. Definitely looks
He'll
like
that. He'll like that. Nice. And what do you got for us, Maurice, in the game?
Big time news, absolutely, because now this king has moved to e5. And if you are black, you're thinking, okay, I've got the blockade on b6. I've got the active rook on c3. My king is getting active. Looks like some stuff's happening. Not so much. This b-pawn is still on the board, and in fact, you're not going to get that much activity because of this move. Rook e2 has not been played as yet, but this would be a very difficult move to meet. In fact, he played rook to d2. I'm not going to make too much of a point about it, but this one, though, rook e2 was quite strong. The reason is, note this line, king to d4, the move bishop to c6. Now, what do we like about this move?
Rook to e7.
We got nothing. We're not worried about this side anymore. Again, we said your knight, and the knight is basically a pawn. It's dealing with the pawn. So your knight is just a pawn. So while it's busy doing that, look at all these yummies on the other side of the board, the weakness. And your king that was defending it with the king on f6 is now sitting on d4, pseudo activity, but not doing anything whatsoever. Here, the pawns are just now turning into victims. This would have been a very powerful move, rook to e2, in pretty much all lines. Instead, he played rook to d2, preventing an activity that he probably wanted to see happen in the game. It's not that it's completely throwing away his advantage, but it wouldn't have been as crispy as the move rook to e2. I'll point out that rook to e2 would have chased the king back. You say, well, what if the king just backs up? Well, now suddenly rook to c2 shows up on the board. And this one you did not want to see because rook c6 is coming with effect. You have to trade off this piece, and now the knight, as we said, was a big pawn. And the problem of this, particularly this h-pawn on the board is too wide for the knight to deal with. This king is coming soon. This bishop is going to tie you down, and you're not defending this position. So it looks like he missed a real opportunity with rook to e2, did Wang Hao. Rook to d2 is going to make it a little bit more challenging. He's still there with a good chance to win, but looked like he missed that real shot. And as we said, the clock matters because he's currently on move 53. He has 7 moves to make with only 7:55 left to go. He's the one with the advantage, of course, but don't take an advantage for granted. We know in chess, it can just slip away in a move. Yes. And suddenly, it could be equal.
There's one thing I really don't like about the move rook d2. Rook e2 is very visual because it forces things. Exactly. So I don't have to think about general concepts. Either it works or it doesn't. The king goes forward, I go bishop c6. Again, I don't have to think about general concepts. I'm just munching your pawns.
Exactly.
The thing I don't like about rook d2 is that suddenly white has no threat. And Giri has quickly played the move rook b3.
Getting his rook better positioned behind the pawn.
Behind the pawn, and we talked about this. Rook behind the pawn is such an important concept because now in the weird scenario that the knight is traded for the bishop, these endgames aren't winning anymore.
Exactly.
They're only winning when the rook is behind the pawn. No one is randomly somewhere. And with the bishop coming to c6, now my rook's behind the pawn. Now my knight's not a pawn. I can play knight c4, right?
Starts to emerge as a possibility.
Starts to hop around.
Right, it's free.
It's free.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be.
It's not necessarily doing that much, though, this night. You look at it, you ask for specificity. That's what I'm looking for as a word.
Easy for you to say.
Easy for me to say 3 times fast. But the knight, even on that square, looks a little bit delicate. You know, bishop d5 could happen at some moment. But that said, you didn't want to release it from prison.
No, but I actually do challenge a move here for white, because after bishop c6, knight c4, I don't know if there's a better move. There might be a better move. But bishop c6, knight c4.
Right.
What is your next move?
Okay, let's start with
rook d5, king e6. And now I have a very serious threat, because knight e5 is a threat.
Right.
And if you go there, you still have...
Well, now you have rook b2 check.
I have rook b2. I have to throw in rook b2 check.
Exactly.
There's no choice.
Exactly.
Your king's going somewhere it doesn't want to go.
Gotta go.
And now let's say I go knight... I'm not sure if e5 or d6. Because knight d6...
I like e3. It looks so visual for some reason, but maybe I'm wrong. Yeah.
Rook e4 just wins the
rook
knight.
e4, yes.
Oops. But let's say knight d6. I'm not sure knight d6, knight e5. How do you defend this pawn?
Oh, that's a problem.
I'm tying up my pieces. I'm not happy about what I've just done.
Everything is tied up.
I mean,
everything is tied up. The rook is controlling. In fact,
I mean, I'm going to have to crawl my king.
In fact, I can go pawn hunting. Even a move like knight f5.
Well, you told me about. Oh, the e3 pawn. Remember earlier in the game when the b pawn went. Okay, you can go pawn hunting with knight takes g3 if you like, but I think the
e3 square.
But wait, knight e3 check doesn't.
Yeah, and then rook c2
check and rook c6. And
yeah, you still have a rook d3 that miraculously saves you, but that's just a draw.
No, you don't want this.
You don't want this. We're not looking at this.
Miraculously. Oh yeah.
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 It's a draw.
Ooh, wow. Okay, rook d2, that soft move is a real culprit.
Very soft.
What?
Well, because
Very
bishop
soft.
c6 is now on the board, which is logical. This is where
and
the
then
bishop wants
knight
to go.
By the way, the engines hate bishop c6. Like,
Really?
Really
Yeah,
hate
bishop to
bishop
d3,
c6.
maybe.
And because of the move knight c4, suddenly black is creating some issues. Bishop d3, stopping knight c4, guarding the pawn is what the engines wanted to do. And that, when you see it, you say, that looks pretty good.
Yeah, it regroups.
That looks pretty good. His rook d2 was quite, and so 2 moves now, rook d2 and bishop c6. And like we said, we said this.
Suddenly it's a slip.
You get the clock pressure when you're down, when you're worse. You need to cling to everything. Your position might be worse, might even be lost, but you need to cling to whatever you can. And one thing is the clock, without question. That's a part of chess. And you look at the clock times, and Nish goes, can I complicate this a little bit? Make him stop and think and maybe not play the precise Karpovian move. And it looks as though his opponent has indeed felt that pressure and didn't play precisely. And now his bishop c6, by the way, the moves he's playing, they don't look bad.
No.
Rook d2 and bishop c6, they don't look bad. Bishop c6, like a bishop e8 sighting, might appear at any moment. But the slight imprecision and sudden activity of the black pieces, so you're never going to get those things that you want, and I'm getting some things as well. So Anish suddenly there with a shout.
Knight c4 on the board?
You can imagine, and he's played knight c4, yes. It's no longer a big fat pawn. It's now an active piece. This is turned into work, if it's still winning.
Right. I mean, what's the hardest thing in chess? To win a winning position?
Yeah, I feel like this should still somehow be really good for white.
Right.
But now I'm trying to figure out a coordination between my pieces, because I am scared. I mean, as I did say in rehearsal, knight eat knights, hoppity hop. Yeah. And this one on c4 is currently going to go to d6, target my pawn on b5. If the king's not on e5, on b5, sorry. If the king's not on e5, the knight itself would go to e5. It targets my bishop on c6, defends the pawn on f7. It targets the pawn on f3. It's doing all these jobs that it didn't have. It was a pawn on b6, as Maurice said.
It was a pawn before.
And now
it looks like like a knight for real.
Yeah.
And like a real knight. And that bishop on c6, just defending, doesn't look like it's doing anything.
And that rook on b3, also very annoying.
In the last 2 moves, black's gained a tremendous amount of activity.
How about f4 check?
I think f4 is necessary.
Because that king on e5 coordinates the d6 square.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see the knight coming to the d6 square. So I'm thinking f5 check. I'm going to drive you. Okay, just to boldly state the obvious, don't walk into the skewer there with So you're going to have to move the king to
And
F6.
F4 played, and best move.
Okay. You go king F6, and now...
Maybe like rook D4?
Rook D4, rook D7.
I'm not sure.
I was thinking,
Yeah, trying to...
Grab
tactics.
a pawn.
Grab a pawn. The problem, I'm starting to think of knight E3, knight G4, if that's going to be an issue. Maybe that's not an issue.
Knight E3, knight G4. I remember, I've got
This does
rook
feel a
takes
little-
F7,
this looks a
right?
little flimsy,
Yeah,
yeah.
I could maybe even
Do
just
king
move my
E2,
king
king
E2.
E2, yeah, king E2 is
and
very
rook
strong.
F7 check is on tap for
Rook D7, King E6, apparently the strongest way to play in that moment.
King E6.
Because again, this idea of knight D6.
You
And I
just
don't have the time for bishop D5.
Exactly. You just sidestep bishop D5. For the moment, the rook is hanging, so I can't move my bishop in.
This has become a lot harder.
This is now
Yeah, no, this is
considered by the engines to be a draw.
Really?
Wow. Wow, that's...
This has been totally frittered away. This move, rook to D2, coupled with bishop to C6, he's going to kick himself, Wang Hao, when he realizes that he could have played with rook E2 instead. With the same idea, but with a rook on E2, complete sea change in the position.
Wow.
And this now, Anish is feeling the momentum going in his favor. And you know momentum counts in chess. Right?
Yeah.
You know momentum counts. Momentum, I usually say momentum, is as good as your last move. But the psychology in chess is so important that when you go from, I'm dead, to, wait, I got a chance to, whoa.
This is sweet.
Ooh, wait, I can fight now. And the other guy feels it. Remember, we talked zero sum. The other guy feels the difference in the swing of the game. And he starts to go from, wait, I had this. This was easy. What's going on? To stop that psychological train from going in that direction is very difficult. We've all done it. We've all had great positions where this should be good. Yeah, I'm going to. Then we get to a point where you go, what happened? Then you start thinking, where did I mess up? Right? You got to stay focused, but your brain is going, where did I mess up? Did I make an error? And you start thinking about everything but the chessboard, and your brain starts to get scattered. So I can tell you, Wang Hao will kick himself for having a B pawn, protected, nice, juicy pawn on B2, on B5. And now he's thinking, I didn't win this game. That will have a deflating effect if, in fact, he doesn't win the game. So he's got to get his brain right and hope he can find some chances to make Anish mess up.
And in the candidates, right?
And in the candidates.
By the way, on that subject of momentum for just a moment, it was really the last round of the Tata Steel chess tournament. Now, when, Fabiano sits down and plays against a great grandmaster like Duda,
yeah,
you think this is going to be a wonderful fight, and Duda's in there with a chance. But the momentum was so overwhelming. You just looked at it and said, Duda, before move one, I mean, if he draws this game, it's going to be a miracle. And I mean, and it really happened that Fabi's form was overwhelming, his momentum, and it was unstoppable.
He was unstoppable. I mean,
it was
some
crazy.
of those games, it just didn't matter what position he got.
Right.
I mean, that king march he did against Vytugov.
Oh, wow.
It's amazing. He did, in the speed that he did it.
I know.
I remember watching it live. I was like, wow, that's a great win. I mean, he's going to take some time, but, he's Fabi. I've seen him calculate. He's going to find it. And then, I don't know what I was doing, and then 2 minutes later,
he had just achieved exactly
the
what he
king was on
wanted.
B2.
Right.
Winning the game. I'm winning the game. Yeah, it was amazing.
Well,
we have a call.
From Rhode Island. Please give us your name and your question.
Oh, hi, this is Tom.
Hi, Tom.
Hi, Yasser, Alejandro, and Maurice. Thanks for the great commentary.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask, when you're analyzing 4 variations of an attack and one results in winning the exchange, like getting a rook for a knight and a pawn or a rook for a bishop, you often move on to the other variations with the understanding that it's worse for the defending player. And without the zero emphasizing piece activity over points, do you always see a plan for the attacking player to make use of that point differential? Because sometimes it looks like the attacking player's rook is boxed in, or if the defending player retains both bishops and there's open diagonals, it looks good.
Okay, Tom, you're asking a kind of a general question while giving us a specific example. You're attacking.
Yes.
And you've got like 2, 3 really good choices, and one wins an exchange. It's a good idea to take it. Alejandro.
It really depends on a few factors. An exchange is kind of a borderline material level where you can have compensation for an exchange, a full exchange, and still be in the game.
But if you got an exchange and a pawn, though?
An exchange and a pawn, it's almost equal.
Right.
At this point, I'm not even really considering this a great win of material.
Right.
I'm thinking, I need more from my attack. If there's nothing better and my attack is fizzling, then certainly I'm going to cash in. But if it's an attack and I win a knight and a pawn for a rook, I don't feel satisfied. I don't feel like I've really accomplished much, especially if my opposition is now inferior because, as you mentioned, the rook was boxed in or something like that. Nowadays, we consider 2 pawns to be a winning advantage, a full exchange to be a winning advantage, piece to be a winning advantage. An exchange for a pawn, it's not enough.
Right.
I mean, normally you will have something that needs to be improved for the position to be considered winning. A lot of endgames in which you have an extra exchange for a pawn are winning, but that's because the rook is so far superior. But in middle games, you don't really feel the power of the rook.
Right.
So when you mention the alpha zero activity of the pieces, it's very common that even grandmasters will skew going for something as meager.
Material, avoiding the material games, keeping all of the dynamic
pressure,
and active play.
Yes, yeah.
Jump right in, Maurice.
I'm not a materialist by any means, so I'm looking to destroy you. I don't want your measly exchange.
Right.
And you get a pawn on top of it, like a knight and a pawn against. Your knight better suck, because just having the rook, not enough. But I will say, all these questions that you're asking, great questions, but the bottom line is, it all depends on the situation. It all depends on the situation on the board. One shifting of a pawn on the board, a pawn on a6 versus a pawn on a7, could completely change the evaluation of whether or not you do that. We saw these endgames, just yesterday we saw the endgame between Giri and Nepo.
Exactly.
And the difference between a pawn on f2 and an f3 is the difference between a win and a draw, whether or not you go for this endgame or whether or not you stay and play. So everything is always so specific that what you do is you increase your chess skills, you increase your ability to assess situations, and when they come up, you can look and say, this exchange is good, that one is garbage, I know where to stay. And everything is always going to be specific. I feel like I can never answer a question like that one because you don't have generalized formulas in chess. The better you get, the better you are able to assess all these situations. And Korchnoi himself, the late great Victor Korchnoi, I know, was a great friend of yours, Yasser.
Yeah.
He said, the great players are the ones who can find those exceptions. Mm-hmm. And, you're in situations that, this is not one of those, I'm going to do something different. It's that we don't look for generalized rules. We look to be very clear in any given situation to find out what we should do.
One of the things that I am seeing in the top play, the play of the top players today, is that they are really, they're avoiding the material. They really, really are. They are really playing for the activity and just keeping you under pressure.
It does seem like the trend.
They don't cash in.
They don't cash in.
Is Wang Hao cashing in?
I don't know. Let's figure it out. He's just been given a check on b2,
which
King F3.
might be helpful because essentially this move King F3 is saying, like, check me again and allow me to
go up the board.
Go up the board and harass the knight and try to utilize the pawn.
Well, let's try to be a little bit more clever. I really don't like taking on g3 with the rook.
Okay.
I was wondering what the continuation was after. No, I don't like rook b3 at all.
I'm sorry.
But let's go knight d2.
Knight David 2
I'm
check.
trying to figure out how you.
Okay, I'm going to.
And now I take g3, but with my knight.
Right. Now I'm thinking.
No, you can't play to d3.
Oh.
You can't cross.
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah, you can't cross on the d file because rook d2 wins the rook on d8.
I thought I was just being so smart and going king to d3 to c3.
Yeah.
Sorry, let me bring clue in everybody here. I had overlooked that the knight on f1 defends the rook on d2, and I just skewered and lost the rook. And
easy oversight, by the way. Kramnik himself overlooked a mate in one.
I was there against the computer. D.
That's
Fritz.
Right. D. Fritz dropped mate in one when its knight was on f8. And it played queen h7 mate, and Kramnik overlooked because he said knights don't belong on f8. They control backwards.
I made the wrong move. I'll start with king e2.
Yeah, so this one looks...
because this is the position that I was trying to achieve a moment ago. And then I was thinking that, okay, my b pawn, you're right, you got your g3 pawn.
I'm sorry, but why couldn't I win the exchange again?
Hold on. Did I do it again?
I'm a little bit confused.
I was like, I was taking your knight if you moved your rook. No. King d3, rook d2 is definitely fine for black. Oh boy. Well, then that means I have to do really ugly. I'm not happy at all. I wanted activity,
but not. This is a 3-result game.
King e3 on the board.
Knight f.
Knight d2 check.
He'll probably repeat because he's really down on time, right?
Oh, by the way, yes.
Yeah,
let's mention that 4 moves for 4 minutes.
Not a real time pressure. He has 58 moves made. He needs to make 2 more for 15 extra minutes.
Okay.
Knight f1 check on the board as well.
So I assume he'll play King f3 pretty quickly. And hope for a repetition.
He did the same yesterday, right? He did the exact same thing against Ding Liren. Absolutely. He didn't go for the bishop, captures h4 immediately against Ding Liren. He repeated with his rook, I remember, in the middle. So he's
trying to get
to the time control. So he'll do that again here. And we'll see. We're expecting to see King f3. It is move 58.
He has plenty of time to be fair.
So he's got
2 moves.
Yes. Sorry, I just kind of got off track there. There's also rook b3 check as well, suddenly too. I was thinking.
You mean after I play King f3?
Yeah, I'm thinking. Okay, this is the current game position, right? Knight f1 check. As we've been mentioning, you can't go to the d file. You don't want to walk into a rook d2 check. So King f3 on the board, and now Anish. Remember that knight was on b6?
Yep.
Like, I mean, like what?
Talk about dancing and prancing. My goodness.
Did it jump?
Well, how doesn't have a choice, right? After knight f1 check, does he have another move? Am I missing something?
Well, King e4 is knight g3 check.
Right?
Right.
I don't want to give up with
check. King f3 looks
box.
Yeah, box.
But he has no time, so
play it quickly.
Play quickly and figure it out.
Right.
I'm going to tell you right now, it's easy to say as the outsider.
Yeah.
And chess is one of those games where external coaching is not allowed, right?
Right.
So, except in Olympiads, if the draw offer and you say, should I take the draw, you talk to your team captain. But it's one of those games where external coaching is not allowed. And right now, if you are Wang Hao's coach, you would say, all right, listen, things aren't going very well. Clear your brain. You may not win this game. Calm yourself down, accept that, and just play the board. Play the board, give yourself some chances. You know, he could breathe and say, you know what, you're right. I did mess this up. There's a long tournament ahead. But if you're by yourself, you're sitting there, you're Wang Hao, you don't have that. You're going, I still want to win.
I'm an idiot.
I want to win. I'm like, no, I'm going to make it happen. And you don't clear your brain like you're sitting in the chair. And we all know this as tournament players. You're in the chair. You're trying to insist on what was past and keeping that. And you don't just let go and flow in the moment. It's easy to say from the outside. And if you had a coach to say, listen, look into my eyes. I'm telling you what's going on. To be in the real moment now is one of the hardest things for competitors to do. And this is a moment he's in. He's got to start saying, maybe I don't win, but don't blunder something. Don't be stupid because you're trying to win so much that you blunder something and blow the game completely.
Well, this is like the carrying the baggage, right? From you're winning out of the open.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and now you know you're winning.
Yeah.
And then it gets worse and worse and worse, and now you've thrown it away. But you're still carrying the baggage of the fact that you were winning out of the opening, and you're still determined to win instead of having a clear head. By the way,
tough.
That's where I see guys like Fabi and Magnus
That's
right.
so
good.
There's another 2800 trait.
Yeah.
They keep calm. They're very objective.
But by the way, don't overstate that. Don't overstate it. We've seen,
we've
seen those guys panic too.
Exactly.
We've seen it.
But they're pretty objective.
They're
overall.
pretty objective. But
yeah.
Remember Fabiano Caruana, Varuzhin Akobian U.S. Championship.
Ooh. Yeah, that was
2 pawns up.
Right.
Oh, Varuzhin's on the.
Yeah.
Varuzhin's on the truck helping us.
Varuzhin that's a happy moment.
Varuzhin, by the way, is upstairs and saying, "Thank you, Maurice."
Yes, that's right. Thanks for the good memory.
Keep talking.
That's right. Thanks for the very pleasant memory. Because
nice mention.
We've seen panic even among the elite. It happens. This is a very important competitive moment, and
exactly.
You just don't want to fritter it away.
Well, so King f3, Knight d2 played, and Wang Hao only has 2 minutes to make one move, but one move is all he needs.
Right. Okay, let's take a look. I'm going to play King
You
E2.
probably have to. And I'm still going to go knight e4. I also don't see much of a
And
choice.
I'm going to play King D1. Again, I'm not going to walk into that skewer.
I'll take on g3.
And, yep. Okay, now, if I go King C1.
I'll go rook b4.
Exactly, and I'm going to go King. I want to try to chase the
I
rook.
want you to win as many pawns as makes you happy.
Right, and you're going to try
Knight f5.
Knight f5.
I'm going to take all of them.
Okay, and let's go. King.
Okay, here I have to go to b1. I don't see much of a choice.
Okay, right. And boy, it's...
Man, now, once you sacrifice h4.
Which I've done.
You've done.
Yeah.
Hard for me to believe that white's going to ever end up worse. But there will be situations where, guess
it's
what?
It's a 3-result game.
It's a 3-result game. I'm going to win f4 at some point. Even if you win a rook, you're not guaranteeing anything.
That is true. Okay, but I don't see any. I mean, otherwise,
it's on the board. It's on the board. King e2, knight e4.
Otherwise, it's a draw agreed on the spot. And you know, by the way, I have to say, if I'm in Wang Hao's shoes, I'm saying this is an opportunity of a lifetime for me.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I've got to try to win this game. If I draw, like we say, you know, second best is, well, nice prize fund. Thank you very much. You played it.
But yes,
I mean, look, seize the moment.
You see, and that's the mindset.
Carpe
That's the
diem.
mindset. You're back in that mindset again.
Right.
But how?
Don't screw up the game.
Don't overpress.
Right.
Don't screw up the game. And I'm surprised you said that, because he's at +1. He needs +3, and he's going to have 12 more games to do it.
Right.
It doesn't have to be this game. You're going to have some. You're going to win some. You're going to lose some. You're going to draw some. You're going to draw a lot. If that's what happens, you happen not to get it. Don't make round number 2 the bellwether of the whole tournament. No. Make sure you don't screw up, because if you screw up, you're in big trouble. You don't have to overpress. What's going to be the next time control? 15 minutes, right?
It's not that much.
Yeah,
15 minutes for the whole rest of the game with your 30-second increment. You're going to be hard for you to play perfect chess for the future. So I think the right mindset is, don't be scared.
King f3, knight d2 is a draw. That's a threefold.
Did he play King f3?
That's a threefold.
So he actually is repeating the position, and I think he's accepted that this is he's not willing to go for the danger. He's got a long tournament ahead. Don't blow it now.
I believe that is a 3-time repetition. Am I miscounting, Maurice?
I don't think so. I think
Just a second.
And it's a draw
I
agreed.
think it is a
draw
draw,
agreed between
indeed.
Wang Hao and Anish Giri. A great escape.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Wow.
A great escape indeed.
Wang Hao is going to be kicking himself for this one.
No question
What a
about it.
miss by the Chinese player. Definitely a winning position. And this couple of clumsy moves, rook d2, bishop c6, letting this knight go around.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And once you saw the knight start dancing like that, and then suddenly you're dropping material and all that, that's when you know, I think actually he might be kicking himself. He will be kicking himself. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, I'm impressed by his objectivity. He did not say, I'm just going to win at all costs.
Yeah.
He said, the right thing to do here competitively is accept my flaws. I did not do a good job. Let me not blow it. Let me not just screw this game up and somehow manage to lose. And, you know, he did the right thing for the moment. Now, that said, I'd rather see him play so we can see him maybe screw up and fun to watch. But I think he did something extraordinarily professional in this moment. Hard to accept that you blew it and say, I was wrong. I played badly.
Well, we have a
guys, four-way tie.
Four-way tie. Fabiano Caruana, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, Jan Nepomniachtchi, and now Wang Hao, all at 1.5 points plus 1 for all of them. Grischuk sitting as the lone, surprisingly lone, 50%.
I was about to say.
With 1 point, Kirill Alexenko and Anish Giri with -1 or half a point, and the sole, well, at the basement is Ding Liren. He's just not started well at all. But we have more fireworks for you tomorrow. Join us, of course, as we have round 3 pairings. Ding Liren versus Fabiano Caruana. Before the tournament, this was the matchup.
Right.
But right now, it's a leader against somebody with 0 points. Let's see what Ding Liren brings. He does have the white pieces, so he'll at least have that comfort. Anish Giri will be playing against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, who comes from a victory. Both players certainly happy with the result. One because he didn't lose, and the other one just crushed his opponent. Grischuk against Wang Hao. And Kirill Alexenko against Jan Nepomniachtchi, another Russian matchup. And curiously, all of the leaders play with the black pieces tomorrow.
How ironic that is. All of them, 4 leaders and everybody with the black pieces. Nice. Maurice, final thoughts of this very exciting game 2, round 2.
Absolutely, a dynamic day indeed. 4 players, tied for first. That's pretty good. +1. Happy Fabiano Caruana, of course. What a blasting, crushing day he had. And MVL also showing some dominance, of course. Ding Liren will have to get it together. We expect to see something from him. Will he be able to pull himself together and be able to fight back? Anish Giri's got to be feeling a big sigh of relief. Let me draw a few games for a while, he's thinking, and then maybe win a couple and get myself back on track. This has been a very exciting tournament indeed. Everything we could possibly hope for, and I'm expecting more to continue tomorrow.
Thank you, Maurice.
Well, thank you, Yasser. It was a pleasure commentating here on the second round. Join us tomorrow, 3rd round, of course, same time, same place. Exciting games.
Yes.
Don't miss it. We'll be here.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Goodbye.